Chapter 1149. Falling Star Continent. Jun Changshao had returned once again. He had completed many missions the last time he came back. His cultivation level had increased by several grades, and he had brought back various martial arts resources. This time, it was even better. He had brought back 2 martial emperors from the upper realm. The moment he stepped into his homeland, Jun Changshao could not help but sing at the top of his lungs. As a result, the black and white double killer's eyelids rolled back and foamed at the mouth. They almost passed out on the spot. If singing could be used in battle, Go Sheng would have reached the level of invincible true loneliness. Come on, quick, little brother, stop singing. I still want to live for 2 more years. The black and white double killers said in unison. Their expressions were pained as if they were going to bleed from their 7 orifices at any moment. Jun Changshao gave up on expressing his feelings. Then, he brought the 2 of them into Aeon City and used the teleportation portal to return to the Sect of all times. This is incredible. The Black Rakshasa was shocked. A low-level mortal plane actually has a teleportation system. However, what shocked him even more was the disciples he saw after entering the Sect of all times. Big black fool. The white Rakshasa's eyes widened. These Sect disciples don't have high spirit root aptitude, but their bodies and spirit energy seem to be very outstanding. That's right. The black Rakshasa nodded. The layman enjoyed the show, while the expert appreciated the technique. The Sect of all times disciples started off by entering the molding room, then went through the Tower of Trials and cultivated in the advanced spirit gathering formation. In terms of physical strength and spirit energy purity, they were absolutely impeccable. In the outside world, be it family or sect, one's future was measured by spirit root aptitude. However, even if one only had low-grade mortal-grade spirit roots here, as long as they were willing to work hard, they could achieve higher than superior grade, supreme grade, or even saint grade spirit roots. This was the Sect of all times. It was a different kind of firework. At this moment, the black and white double killer's gazes suddenly turned serious. This was because a young man walked out of the cafeteria with a toothpick in his mouth. He Woody also noticed the 2 of them. Surprise appeared on his face. What? Jun Changshao asked, brothers, do you know me, your last disciple? No. The black and white double killers shook their heads. He Woody didn't know them either. However, he could sense that the aura that the other party was inadvertently emitting was extraordinary. Perhaps, he was from a high-level existential plane. After living in the same place for a long time, there would naturally be differences. It was difficult for a mortal martial artist like Jun Changshao to notice, but he Woody could. The black and white double ghosts also noticed that something was different about him, and they guessed that he might have come from the upper realm. A mortal plane actually had a martial artist from the upper realm, and he was actually taken in as a last disciple. This was simply unbelievable. Little brother. Bai Luocha smiled and said, your last disciple's aptitude is extraordinary. Her future achievements will definitely be limitless. Brother, you flatter me. Jun Changshao glanced at He Woody and ordered, go, close the door. Yes. He Woody withdrew his gaze and walked towards the mountain gate. Bai Luocha said in surprise, little brother, isn't it a little demeaning to have a core disciple go and close the door? This is his duty, Jun Changshao explained. Duty? Bai Luocha was confused. Black Rakshasa's mind spun quickly, and she broke down. Is this last disciple really going to close the door? That's right. Jun Changshao said, my sect still has a last disciple. Bai Luocha almost fell to the ground. Weren't the last disciples of the sect the core existences? Why was he really the last disciple? This is too strange. Very strange. The black and white double ghosts muttered in their hearts. Then, they exchanged glances and said in unison, could this sect of all times really be related to the 7 profound sage? Patriarch. At this moment, Li Qingyang rushed over after hearing the news. With their sharp eyes, the black and white double ghosts immediately determined that this person had the strongest spirit root aptitude in the mortal plane. Next, the two of them would be shocked along the way. This was because Su Xiaoma, Li Fei, Seven Fields, and other core disciples appeared one after another. Regardless of aptitude or other aspects, they were all top geniuses in the mortal plane. Bai Luo Cha broke down in her heart. Are there no ordinary people in the sect of all times? At this moment, the two of them saw Ma Yongning. This person looked very ordinary. While she was thinking, Ma Chetuan had already stopped in the kitchen. He waved his kitchen knife, which turned into countless knife shadows as he started to skillfully cut the vegetables. Every step and every detail was perfectly controlled, which made the black and white double ghosts break down again. A chopper had actually comprehended some kind of profound meaning of the knife Dao. This was too exaggerated. Sigh, it was not that the two of them were ignorant. It was just that the disciples of a low-level mortal plane's spirit root aptitude, physical body, and spirit ability did not match at all. This was too illogical. Patriarch. Li Qingyang said in a low voice, these two don't seem simple. He could not capture the aura of the black and white double ghosts from the upper world, but he could roughly guess that they were very powerful from the thick aura that they inadvertently released. Jun Changshao said, they are martial emperors. Naturally, they are not simple. I see. Li Qingyang replied and then suddenly stopped in his tracks. His mouth gradually opened, and his eyes widened in shock. Martial emperors? The sect of all times was in an uproar. Because the two middle-aged men that the patriarch had brought back were actually martial emperors. Martial emperors. The most powerful cultivation level in the falling star continent. Since the ancient times, and excluding that poor guy who had died, there were only 9 martial emperors, and they had not shown their faces for thousands of years. For a moment, tens of thousands of disciples of the sect of all times gathered at the training ground. They all looked into the hall, hoping to be lucky enough to see the continent's most powerful martial artists. Senior brother Su, the patriarch has brought back 2 martial emperors. Li Fei said excitedly. Oh my god, am I dreaming? The martial artists living in the falling star continent knew from a young age that martial emperors were the most powerful people in the world. They regarded them as their absolute faith. How could they not be excited when a sect suddenly appeared today, and 2 of them at that? Su Xiaoma broke down. Can you get off me first? It turned out that Li Fei, who was too excited, was riding on top of him. He raised his head and looked into the hall. Senior brother Su. Li Tian ran over and said, who are the 2 martial emperors that the patriarch brought back? Well. Su Xiaoma thought for a moment and said, it's definitely not Night Emperor. That poor guy has been dead for thousands of years. Yi Xingchen had just rushed over, and he almost couldn't help but kick him to Lu Zhou in the northeast. Why did the patriarch bring back 2 martial emperors? Pei Aniu stood at the training ground and released his spiritual senses with a calm expression. When he saw the black and white double ghosts' faces, he said in surprise, who are these 2? I don't know them at all. He and Su Xiaoma had misunderstood. They thought that the 2 strongest martial artists that Jun Changshao had brought back were 2 of the 9 martial emperors of the falling star continent. The black and white double ghosts, who were sitting at the head of the hall, were also observing the tens of thousands of disciples gathered at the training ground. They were amazed by the fact that a mortal sect was full of geniuses. The white Rakshasa noticed Yi Xingchen and said with a smile, little brother, that sour-faced guy outside has the bearing of a martial emperor. He might not be inferior to your last disciple in the future. Miao Zhan, Miao Zhan. Jun Changshao cupped his fists and said, brothers, you've rushed here from the Soul Race's continent. You must be hungry. I've already ordered my disciples to prepare food. The white Rakshasa said disapprovingly, big idiot, hey, and I already have the ability to fast. We won't starve to death even if we don't eat for hundreds of years. So, there's no need to go through so much trouble to prepare food. To be precise, the two of them had eaten too many dishes with higher attributes. They were not interested in mortal food at all, especially when they ate with Jun Changshao in the Soul Race's continent. They drank wine the entire time and did not take any food. The upper realm's powerhouses were a little picky. Chapter 1150. In fact, in the Falling Star continent, once a person reached a certain level, such as a martial king, he or she could go without food for dozens of days without a problem. However, in the world of martial arts, food might not be used to fill one's hunger. Many people were more willing to taste the delicacies on the tip of their tongue and experience the impact of various seasonings on their taste buds. Therefore, even if the powerhouses from the upper realm could go without food for dozens or even hundreds of years, it did not mean that they would go on a hunger strike. If there was delicious food, they would definitely eat it and evaluate it. At this moment, in the Sect of All Time's cafeteria, Jun Changshao, Li Qingyang, and the others had their mouths wide open as they watched the black and white killers wolfing down the food as if they had never eaten in their lives. Patriarch Lu Wancher whispered, "Tell them to eat slower, don't choke to death." "My brothers," Jun Changshao said, don't worry, no one will snatch it from you." Smack! The white Rakshasa put down his chopsticks and said with tears streaming down his face, "I've never eaten such delicious food before." Useless! The black Rakshasa rolled his eyes at him, then put down his bowl and said, "Brother, another bowl of fried rice with more eggs." At first, the two of them were quite resistant to mortal food, but after eating the food of the Sect of All Times, they were immediately shocked. They suddenly felt that the food they had eaten while traveling in the upper realm was simply rubbish. This was not a large-scale cooking scene. This was Lu Wancher's cooking, and it was super delicious. Come. Jun Changshao personally poured wine for his two brothers and said, "Please try the drunken dream brewed by the winemaker of the Sect of All Times." The white Rakshasa picked up the cup and tasted it like an expert. He praised, "Good wine. Brother, your sect is full of hidden dragons and crouching tigers." The black Rakshasa also tasted it and felt that he had a better understanding of the attributes of heaven and earth around him. However, he did not take it to heart because this kind of increase was of no help to a martial emperor. Jun Changshao said, "I've already arranged 2 independent courtyards for you. If you like, you can stay here for a long time." "That won't do." The effects of drunken dreams were a bit strong, and the white Rakshasa seemed to have gotten to her head. Her face and ears were red as she said, "Hurry up and find that navigation king, and take revenge for our little brother." Jun Changshao raised his glass and said, "Thank you, big brother." After the black and white double breaks ate and drank their fill, they temporarily stayed in the Sect of All Times. The next day, after admiring the magnificent buildings and the lofty mountains, he couldn't help but sigh with emotion. The places that Senior Qishuan has stayed in are truly extraordinary. Jun Changshao hadn't emphasized that the sect was related to the 7 profound holy venerate, but after the two brothers arrived, they had already filled in the blanks from various aspects and even firmly believed in it. It was definitely not Go Sheng's credit to be able to fool the 2 upper realm powerhouses, but it was the system's credit. After all, it used various goods and martial arts facilities to cultivate tens of thousands of abnormal disciples. Not to mention the black and white Rakshasa. Even if the 7 profound sage himself came. Seeing a sect with such potential in a mortal plane, he would definitely imagine that they had come down from the upper realm. After returning to the sect, Jun Changshao briefly listened to the reports of Yuan Gongzi, Li Luoqiu, and the others regarding the sect and the pugilistic world. There was one piece of news that surprised him quite a bit. That was, when he was on his way back, the gate that connected to the planar battlefield in the sky of the central continent closed and then mysteriously disappeared. Li Luoqiu said, "According to the news sent by the altar, our falling star continent was disqualified from entering the planar battlefield because the Patriarch violated the rules." Jun Changshao said unhappily, "What rules did I violate?" "Whether you violated the rules or not, host, don't you know in your heart? The system ridiculed." Li Luoqiu continued, "Although we violated the rules, the upper realm didn't punish us. They only disqualified us from entering again, and then other planes will fill in the gap. It doesn't matter. Jun Changshao shrugged and said, as long as there is a teleportation gate to the planar battlefield, I can still let my disciples enter as they wish. Although that was the case, the falling star continent's cultivators suffered. After all, they had completed the mission quota and could enter to train or search for opportunities in the future. Now that the gate was closed, they could not enter at all. Patriarch Yuan Gongzi smiled and said, this is a good opportunity to earn money. Jun Changshao asked, what do you mean? Yuan Gongzi said, the gate to the planar battlefield normally disappears. If any cultivator wants to enter, they can pay money and resources to enter through our teleportation gate. Jun Changshao's eyes lit up, and he said, that makes sense. Actually, when the first batch of falling star continent's cultivators entered the planar battlefield, the fact that he could secretly enter had already been made public. Thus, showing the teleportation gate would not cause any waves. Even if it did, it would not matter. In this world, who would dare to provoke the sect of all times? Old Yuan. Jun Changshao said, with your help, I am relieved. Sigh. Li Luoqiu shook her head and said, it's a pity that the plane that replaced our falling star continent picked up a disaster for no reason. There's no helping it. Jun Changshao said, in the world of martial arts, who doesn't get stabbed? He did not dwell too much on the planar battlefield. After discussing business, he headed to the prison. After Yuan Gongzi's planning, the Sect of All Times prison was now divided into two levels. One was heaven, and the other was earth. The former held Zhao Daodu and Dai Lu, while the latter held the bald man and the others. Creak. The prison door opened, and Jun Changshao walked in. Swoosh. Xiao Ziji had set up the chair in advance and then stood behind the patriarch. If he wore a black shirt and sunglasses, he would definitely look like a bodyguard. Ugly. Jun Changshao interlocked his fingers and said, have you gotten used to living here? If it was in the past, the bald man would have flipped the table when he heard someone call him ugly. Now, he was shivering in the corner. After being taught by Arya, he had already developed a psychological shadow. When he saw Jun Changshao, he was so scared that he kept shivering. Let's cut the crap. Jun Changshao took out an electronic cigar, then lowered his head and lit it. He said in the style of a mafia boss, tell me honestly, the detailed address of your boss' house. I have a lot of blades recently, and I want to mail some to him. Speak. Jun Changshao shouted coldly. Because it was too sudden and the volume was very high, it was like thunder. The bald man was so scared that he almost collapsed. He said in horror, speak. I'll speak. I'll tell you everything, in a beautiful courtyard. Jun Changshao sat in a small pavilion and said with a frown, brothers, I already know that guy's address, but what? The white Rakshasa took a sip of tea and put down the teacup. It's a bit far, Jun Changshao said, and we have to cross the universe. Little brother doesn't have the ability to do that now. According to the bald man's information, the Galactic Navigator King came from another region of the universe and temporarily lived in a deserted plane. It was possible to use the space-time worm to dig a hole, but it was a bit slow. Jun Dog's revenge. He thought 10 years was too late. So, he was eager to find the handsome man immediately and press him to the ground. The Black Rakshasa said, as long as you provide the specific location, as long as that guy is still in the mortal universe, even if he hides to the ends of the earth, we can quickly find him. Crossing the universe's stars was a piece of cake for them. Okay. Jun Changshao stood up, looked at the sky, and said, little brother will now show you the way. Whoosh! Whoosh! That day, the black and white Rakshasa took him away from the Sect of All Times and went all the way up until they broke through the space barrier and merged into the endless dark universe. Because he was enveloped by two special energies, Jun Changshao was not affected by the power of the universe. Little brother, what's the location? Wait, let me see. Jun Changshao took out the compass that the bald man gave him and pointed in a direction, saying, brothers, let's go this way. Whoosh dash. Chapter 1151. What was a successful person? If a successful person didn't have the ability to take revenge, they could ask others for help. Jun Changshao fully demonstrated what a successful person was. Not only did he have someone to help him, but he also didn't have the ability to break through the void. Instead, he led the black and white double ghosts to dance in the universe. Sigh. The system sighed. That guy is being targeted by the host. He's 8 lifetimes of bad luck. However, in the desolate plain, this 8 lifetimes of bad luck was sitting on a throne in a palace. The decorations around him were all broken. The Starry Sky Navigation King was very angry now. He was angry that he had walked the universe for so many years and fought countless battles, but he actually almost died in the hands of a low-level plain martial artist. Brat! He clenched his fists and said angrily, "Wait until I recover from my injuries. I'll make sure you die without a burial place." Master! A creature that looked like a toad walked in and said in a trembling voice, "Sixth General didn't send back any news after entering the Falling Star continent. I'm worried that an accident might have happened." "No," the handsome man said. "That plane is even weaker than the Soul Race continent. Little Sixth will definitely be able to deal with it easily. You just need to wait for news." "Yes," the toad said respectfully. The handsome man originally planned to go into seclusion to recover, but he suddenly thought of something and asked, "Go, bring me the Tai race's bloodline ability. I want to recover as soon as possible." The toad said in shock, "Master, although the Tai race's bloodline ability can help heal injuries, it has uncontrollable side effects. Please think twice before you act. Stop talking nonsense." The handsome man said coldly, "Hurry up and bring it." "Yes." The toad could only retreat and bring over a small bottle containing red blood. "Master, please be careful." The handsome man waved his hand and took it. "You may leave." "Yes." The toad had just walked out of the hall when his master's voice rang in his ears. "Call all the 5 generals in the other planes over. When I recover, we'll go to the Soul Race continent together." The handsome man was really angry. For this, he didn't hesitate to mobilize the 5 generals under his command to destroy the Soul Race continent. If Jun Changshao knew, he would definitely cup his hands and say, "Thank you. Call them all over so that I can wipe them out in one go." Plop! In the shattered plane, the last powerhouse guarding his home fell to the ground, dripping with blood. Kakik! The creature with a lizard tail and a human-like body stepped on his head and laughed strangely, "This is what you get for going against me." Damn it, that expert lay weakly on the ground, his eyes almost popping out of their sockets as he said, "You bunch of space bandits, you will suffer retribution sooner or later." Boom! His head exploded and blood splattered everywhere. The lizard man kicked the corpse away. With his back facing the city that was torn apart due to the battle, he said coldly, "Take away all the resources and kill everyone in the city." Yes! Swish! 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 Thousands of martial artists, who seemed to have undergone strict training, flew over one after another, a sinister smile appearing on their faces. "Boss." At this moment, a subordinate reported, "Master ordered us to return to the base as soon as possible." Yes. In another lower plane, a burly man covered in blood wielded a saber and was slaughtering thousands of martial artists. Poochie! Poochie! Blood and limbs flew all over the sky. The scene was too horrible to look at. Boss is simply holding back 10,000 men by himself. On a hill in the distance stood thousands of martial artists. Judging from their attire, they were obviously with the lizard man. Boom! 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 After a period of killing, the remaining elite forces of this plane were all killed. Blood gathered together and dyed the ground red. Ha ha ha! The burly man stood in the pile of corpses with his saber and laughed loudly, "The feeling of cutting grass is so good." Boss! A voice sounded in his ear, "Master wants us to return to the base as soon as possible." Plop! In a magnificent palace hall, the person in power knelt on the ground, his body trembling violently. On the throne sat a young man with a very pale face. He crossed his legs and hugged the person in power's favorite concubine. He smiled and said, "I came all the way here to ask you to hand over some resources. Is this too much?" "Not at all, not at all." The person in power's forehead was sweating profusely. The young man waved his hand and pulled him over. He said coldly, "Since it's not too much, why don't you cooperate?" I, boss." A subordinate beside him said, "Master wants us to return quickly." Whoosh, the young man dragged the person in power out and then stopped at the highest point. He smiled and said, "I'll throw you down from here. Whether you can survive will depend on your luck. Don't, go away." The young man threw the person in power up and punched him in the abdomen. The latter fell to the ground like a cannonball, forming a deep pit that was thousands of feet deep. Could he still survive? No, because with a punch, the person in power who was not strong enough was already dead. Whoosh! 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 In the desolate plain, the handsome man's 5 generals and tens of thousands of subordinates returned one after another. From the emotionless smiles on their faces, it seemed that they had a good harvest. Military advisor. The lizard man was puzzled. "Why did you call us back?" The toad said with a solemn expression, "Master was injured in the Soul continent." "What?" The 5 generals' eyes were filled with disbelief. Master's strength was far above theirs, but he was injured when dealing with a low-level plane. Was this a joke? Boom! At this moment, on a mountain peak behind the palace, a violent explosion sounded. The handsome man flew out of the cave abode in full health and then landed outside the palace. He said coldly, "Follow me, Suddenly, he frowned. In the sky of yellow sand outside the palace, a figure gradually walked over. After seeing clearly, the handsome man's eyes were about to split open. "It's that guy." "That's right." It was the most mischievous and cheapskate Jun Changshao. The 5 generals also noticed him and turned to look. They said in surprise, "Why is there someone in this desolate plain?" Ta! Jun Changshao, who seemed to have walked dozens of miles in one step, stopped in the open space outside the castle. He tore off his extremely cool black robe, revealing his extraordinarily handsome face. He smiled and said, "Everyone, I'm here to cause trouble." Cause trouble? The 5 generals almost laughed out loud. All these years, they had followed Master to fight all over the world. They had always been the ones to cause trouble. When had they ever been the ones to cause trouble? The handsome man sneered and said, "You're quite bold to come to my base alone." Swoosh! He waved his hand and said with a cold gaze, "Take him down." Yes. The 5 generals turned into streams of light and rushed over. Their eyes were all shining with a bloodthirsty light. They were originally robbing other planes, but they were summoned back by Master before they finished their business. They were somewhat unhappy. Now that this guy was here to cause trouble, they definitely had to entertain him well. Whoosh! Whoosh! 5 kinds of manic forces pressed over from 3 directions. Especially the brawny man with the saber. He rushed over and shouted angrily, "Where did this guy come from? How dare he cause trouble?" Whoosh! The saber flashed and tore through space. However, just as it was about to slash at Jun Changshao, the latter pulled out his saber and said in a low voice, "Bankai, Sky Lock Moon slashing." Clang! A ripple of energy instantly spread out. The dust and sand that were stirred up by the explosion of the 5 kinds of forces seemed to be frozen in an instant. Seeing this, the generals were so shocked that they stopped. The brawny man also stopped and stood on the ground with his saber. He seemed to be stunned. Jun Changshao held the second form of unstoppable saber and walked past him. He said lightly, "Look up at the starry sky, and you'll know where I come from." Starry sky? The brawny man tried to raise his head, but pain suddenly came from his neck. Then, his head rolled to the ground. Old Four. The four generals shouted with their eyes wide open. Swoosh! Jun Changshao turned into a stream of light and rushed in front of them in an instant. As the sword flashed, his Chinibyu voice sounded, "All the starry eyes are waiting." 1. Star! Star! Swoosh! When the last word, star, was said, he flashed 4 times in a row and landed behind the lizard man. Plop! Plop! The 4 generals knelt on the ground one after another. Sword marks appeared on their necks, and then their heads were separated from their bodies. If the expert who had been killed earlier was still alive, he would definitely be smiling in the underworld. That was because he had guessed correctly. These cruel interstellar bandits had finally received their retribution. They had all died under the sword of the Chinibyu youth, Jun Changshao. Chapter 1152. 5 evil generals were killed in a short time. The speed was so fast that the handsome man didn't expect it. Jun Changshao was a little strong. He knew that. Sending a few capable subordinates to kill him would only exhaust him. In the end, he still had to do it himself. But in the end, they died before they could even touch his hair. Trash! A bunch of trash. Anger appeared in the handsome man's eyes. But he didn't feel any pain because his right-hand men were killed. But then again, why did Jun Changshao, who had just arrived, directly use hard to retract? Could it be that he knew that the 5 generals had done many inhumane things and decided to enforce justice on behalf of the heavens? Or was he in a hurry to modify the 3rd form of hard to retract and used up the remaining opening talismans as soon as possible? It was both. But it wasn't either. The real reason was that when he was brought here by the black and white double breaks, a side mission was triggered. The content was the subordinates of the interstellar pirate king are unpardonably evil. They have been causing havoc in various dimensions all year round. The host must personally annihilate all of them, super elite mission. Personally? Annihilate all of them? Jun Changshao understood. The system wanted him to start a massacre in the handsome man's territory. In that case, come on, baby. Therefore, Jun Changshao first asked the black and white double breaks to hide in the dark while he went to the handsome man's base alone. He directly used hard to retract and executed the 5 generals on the spot. Fortunately, there was a simple description of those people in the previous chapter, so the reader had a general understanding of them. Therefore, Goshing didn't receive any strong moral condemnation when he killed them. He only thought that the author was a fake chapter. Whoosh! Jun Changshao raised his sword and said indifferently, "Your subordinates aren't strong either." The handsome man's eyes turned cold, and he immediately raised his hand. The tens of thousands of subordinates outside the main hall received the order and immediately attacked without hesitation. After all, they were well trained and wouldn't be disrupted by the death of the 5 generals. The handsome man could have done it himself, but he was somewhat guilty after losing to Jun Changshao earlier. Therefore, he let his subordinates be cannon fodder. Even if they couldn't kill him, they could at least exhaust him for a while. Furthermore, in order to heal his injuries, he had used the Tai race's bloodline ability. At this moment, he had yet to fuse with it perfectly. He needed some time. Although this guy's strength was comparable to that of a martial emperor, he was at most a robber who roamed the universe. Naturally, he would not care about fighting with numbers, nor would he care about the rules of Jianghu. He would not even feel sorry for his subordinates. They're all here. Isn't that exactly what I wanted? Swoosh! Whoosh! Jun Changshao flew out with his sword in hand. His entire body flickered in the air as numerous sword shadows interweaved. The sword momentum carried an extremely strong binding force, so when it spread out, the hundreds of martial artists who were charging at the front were instantly frozen in place, watching the sword light slash past them. Poochie! Poochie! Wherever the sword light passed, blood splattered. Die! Hoo! The martial artists behind him continued to charge forward, releasing all kinds of martial skills, forming energy rays that dyed the dark sky as if it was daytime. The strength of a single person was limited, but when thousands or even tens of thousands of people gathered together, the momentum was extremely terrifying. However, allowing all kinds of energy to gather, once the binding force of hard-to-retract saber swept over, they were instantly frozen in the air. Boom! 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 After a while, the light gathered by all kinds of martial skills suddenly exploded. Jun Changshao flew out from the crowd like a meteor, only to see thousands of people falling to the ground together, blood staining the ground. This guy has mastered the power of space. The handsome man frowned, then the corner of his mouth raised into a smile. In his opinion, wantonly releasing the binding force would consume a lot of energy in the body. When his subordinates were almost exhausted, he could easily take him down. His abacus was quite good. Unfortunately, Jun Changxiao's space binding force didn't come from himself, but from hard-to-retract saber. Now that he had abundant spiritual energy, killing people was like chopping melons and vegetables. Swoosh! Swoosh! Sword shadows flashed, sweeping across all directions. Plop! Plop! One by one, corpses fell from mid-air, and the blood gathered into a river. Together with the dark environment, it seemed to have turned into a slaughterhouse. The butcher Jun Changshao flew around the crowd, shouting silly lines from time to time. Until 10 minutes later, he landed lightly on the ground. Tens of thousands of martial artists were all under his feet. The scene was very shocking. Hard-to-retract saber might be useless against the handsome man, but against a group of shrimp soldiers and crab generals, not to mention tens of thousands, even if there were hundreds of thousands, it would still be killed. Ding! Side quest completed, the host has obtained 50,000 contribution points. Ding! Sect contribution points, 900,007,0000. Ding! Sect contribution points overflow. Ding! Congratulations to the host for completing the side quest, triggering the hidden reward, obtained experience talisman X10. After hearing the prompt, Jun Changshao was a little unhappy and secretly said, "Why only experience talisman and not talisman? Be content." The system said. "Alright." Jun Changshao looked at the handsome man and said indifferently, "You can also follow them to hell." The Starry Sky Navigation King's face was abnormally cold. This guy actually killed all his subordinates in less than a cup of tea's time. What was even more unacceptable was that after the battle, he didn't seem to be tired at all. He didn't even take a breath. "Kid," the handsome man said coldly, "your strength is beyond this marshal's imagination, but it doesn't matter because today, no matter what, you will die here." Whoosh whoosh. A powerful aura erupted, and it was as if it had turned into raging waves, causing the entire desolate plain to tremble. Ha! Jun Changxiao's eyes were filled with surprise. The aura this guy released seemed to be stronger than in the Soul Race continent. The handsome man covered his face and said with a smile, "This marshal has just merged with the Tai race's bloodline and my strength has increased, and you can't wait to die. This saves me a lot of trouble." Tai race's bloodline? Jun Changshao didn't understand. He coldly raised his sword and said, "If you have something to say, say it because you won't have the chance soon." Ha ha ha. The handsome man laughed presumptuously and said, "A trash from a lower plane, I will let you see what is strength today." Buzz! As soon as his voice fell, he appeared in front of Jun Changshao out of thin air. The thick aura around him instantly turned into a big hand and pressed down mercilessly. Ka ka ka. Under the explosion of the powerful aura and power, the surrounding space suddenly cracked. It had to be said that under the blessing of the Tai race's bloodline, the handsome man's strength increased significantly. When he attacked, it was really earth-shattering. However, Jun Changshao stood in place, indifferent. Trash. The handsome man's face was abnormally ferocious as he shouted, "Go to hell." Whoosh whoosh whoosh, dozens of big hands pressed down fiercely, and the power contained also increased sharply. At this moment, the expression on the handsome man's face suddenly froze. Because in the area where his aura spread, two middle-aged men appeared in front of Jun Changshao without him noticing. Their eyes were cold. Boom! Boom! The black and white double devils attacked at the same time, one on the left and one on the right. The handsome man didn't know whether to fly left or right. In the end, he could only fly out in a 360-degree circle. Boom! The castle collapsed, and dust filled the air. Wah! The handsome man lying in the ruins spat out a mouthful of blood, and his eyes were filled with shock. Just one punch from each person had damaged his meridians. The strength of the two middle-aged men was terrifying. Shwa! While he was thinking, the white Rakshasa appeared in front of him, grabbed his head with one hand, and then smashed it fiercely on the ground, saying, "Bullying my little brother is bullying me." Boom! With the castle ruins as the center, the ground within 100 miles instantly caved in a deep pit. Tens of thousands of corpses were turned into nothingness under the influence of the remaining power. Fuck! Jun Changshao said in surprise, "So strong?" "Of course." The black Rakshasa stood in front of him with his arms crossed, and the pride of a powerhouse appeared on his face. There was no longer the miserable appearance of being mercilessly pressed to the ground by Go Sheng in the Soul Race continent. Chapter 1153. Boom! Boom! There was an explosion, and the crater in the ground expanded. Powerful energy spread everywhere, shattering the space around them. The black Rakshasa had joined in the beating as well. At this moment, the handsome man was being hit by the black Rakshasa like a ball in the ruins. Poor guy. He had used the blood of God to increase his strength, but before he could even show off, he was already being tortured by two upper realm powerhouses. "Brother!" Jun Changshao hurriedly shouted, "Don't kill him, leave him alive for me." The main mission was to defeat or kill the Galactic Seafarer King. Since he came with the black Rakshasa, he naturally had to finish him off. Plop! The handsome man flew out of the ruins and fell at Jun Changshao's feet like a pile of mud. Swoosh! The hard-to-retract blade pressed down on his neck. Jun Changshao only needed to wave his hand now, and the handsome man's head would fly off. However, the system reminded him, the main mission is to defeat or kill him, which means that the host has to fight him. It's difficult to complete the mission if you look for help and finish him off. That makes sense. Jun Changshao fell silent. The Galactic Seafarer King only had one life. If he killed him and failed to complete the mission, it would be very troublesome. Got it. Jun Changshao squatted down, grabbed the handsome man's hand, and hit himself. He immediately spat out blood and retreated. The black Rakshasa were stunned. What kind of show is this little brother of mine putting on? Swoosh! Jun Changshao walked over and hit himself with the handsome man's hand again. He then pretended to stagger backward and thought to himself, does this count as a battle? Does killing him count as killing him? The system was speechless. The host is probably the only one who could come up with such a childish idea. The handsome man endured the intense pain all over his body and said angrily with bloodshot eyes, "Trash. Trash, if you didn't have help. You would have died 10,000 times by now, sorry." Jun Changshao said, "There are no ifs. Shwa. Go to the netherworld and look for your subordinates. They should be waiting anxiously for you by now," said the unstoppable blade on his neck. The handsome man's pupils shrank as a strong aura of death surged into his heart. He hurriedly said in horror, Don't kill me. I have a big secret, Poochie." Before he could finish, his head flew into the air. Hua hua hua. Blood spurted out, and the dirty blood dyed the ground red. If a person still had a soul after death, the handsome man would definitely hang in front of the corpse and roar, "Under normal circumstances, don't you wait for me to tell you the secret first? Why aren't you following the routine?" Robbing Starry Sky Navigation Kings knew many tricks, such as the previously mentioned 3-year promise, 10-year promise, and so on. Because he knew a lot of ways to save his life. It was a pity. This time, the opponent he encountered did not walk the usual path. No matter what big secret you have, as long as a strong killing intent rises in my heart, I won't let you live for another second. The system said, of all the people you could provoke, you had to provoke the host's wife. I killed him for the sake of the Starfall continent, not for that woman. Jun Changshao roared inwardly. The system muttered, I'm just complaining. Why is the host so agitated? Could it be that you're angry because I'm right? Jun Changshao threw away the knife that she couldn't retract and clutched her neck with both hands. She looked like she was going to fight it out with her. Little brother, what's wrong? The black and white double ghosts were dumbfounded. If he wanted to be ruthless, he wouldn't even let himself go. This was definitely a person who could accomplish great things. No one would have thought that on an ordinary day, Jun Changshao, whose cultivation base was not even at the peak of Wuxing's realm, would actually kill a martial emperor. This could definitely be bragged about for decades. Of course. After the handsome man and his subordinates were killed, the spatial rings on their bodies also became spoils of war. Jun Changshao first looked at the rings of the 5 great generals. Because they had just returned from a robbery, there were countless martial arts resources in them. I'm rich. I'm rich. Go Sheng's eyes shone with golden light. Then, he peeked into the extra-large spatial ring of the handsome man. He was so excited that he almost fainted on the spot. The Sailing King, who roamed the universe and lived by robbing, had as many as 1 billion spirit stones of different names in the various existential planes. Moreover, there were many rare ores, herbs, crystal cores, martial arts techniques, equipment, and treasures. Ha ha ha. Ha 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 ha. Jun Changshao squatted on a rock and laughed wantonly. If all these resources were used for the development of the sect, its overall strength would definitely skyrocket. However, the handsome man had been killed. Why wasn't the second main mission completed? Jun Changshao's smile gradually froze. He roared in his mind, could it be that your crow's beak was right? Stealing the last hit doesn't count as a kill. Impossible. The system said, I'm the strongest face-slapping system, and I'm also a reverse toxic healer. If this is right, it doesn't fit the character setting at all. You're not a fucking human. How can you be a character setting? That makes sense. Although the system sympathized with the host for not completing the second main mission, it was secretly delighted because this time, it didn't fucking get slapped in the face. Ding! The second main mission is complete. Calculating results. Pft. The notification and the sound of blood spitting came to Jun Changshao's ears one after another. This instantly restored his broken mood, and he continued to squat on the rock, covering his face and laughing foolishly. A main mission. Ever since he had the system, he had never completed it. After the calculation, the reward would definitely be rich. It's best if I can break through to Martial Emperor directly. Just as Jun Changshao was fantasizing, White Rakshasa walked over and pointed at the warship suspended in the sky. This is good stuff. What does it do? This ship can carry people freely across the universe. It can even ignore the dimensional barriers. That awesome. Jun Changshao took advantage of the fact that there was still time to retract his saber and flew up immediately. There were many mops and buckets scattered on the deck of the star battlefield. Clearly, the handsome man's subordinates were doing routine maintenance before he came. Brother. Jun Changshao looked back and forth and said doubtfully, this warship looks very ordinary. Can it really cross the universe? Ordinary. White Rakshasa shook her head and said, this kind of ship is indeed ordinary in the higher realm. In fact, it can be seen everywhere. However, in the lower realms, if little brother has one, it'll definitely be a symbol of status. I have a ship, Jun Changshao said. White Rakshasa was astonished. You have a ship? Jun Changshao scratched his head and said, in terms of material, it shouldn't be inferior to this one. However, it doesn't have the ability to cross the universe. Take it out and let us see, Black Rakshasa said. Whoosh! Jun Changshao waved his hand and summoned the archaic warship. Then, He maximized it and placed it side by side with the handsome man's warship. Judging by the naked eye, the archaic warship was slightly stronger than the warship in terms of both structure and material. Brothers, Jun Changshao said, this is my. He suddenly stopped because the black and white Rakshasa were stunned. Their eyes were filled with disbelief. Big black idiot, white Rakshasa stuttered, it looks a little familiar. Gulp. Black Rakshasa swallowed his saliva and said with a trembling voice, if I'm not mistaken, this should be Senior Tonggu's warship. That mighty figure who challenged 10 powerhouses by himself during the ancient Tao martial arts symposium? White Rakshasa's eyes were filled with respect and worship as she spoke. That's right. Black Rakshasa said seriously, it's him. Then, he hurriedly turned around and looked at Jun Changshao. As if he had just realized something, he said, so you're Senior Tonggu's personal disciple. Ah. Go Sheng's face was filled with question marks. However, his mind worked quickly and he immediately regained his composure. Then, he turned his back to the black and white Rakshasa and raised his head 45 degrees to look at the stars and sighed. In the end, I was still discovered by my brothers. Chapter 1154. Jun Changshao had never heard of Senior Tonggu, let alone know what a personal disciple was. However, he noticed the admiration and worship in the black and white Rakshasa's eyes when they mentioned this person, so he decided to tell a lie. Although I've told countless lies in my life, I think this one is the most perfect, because they made it up on their own accord. I didn't mean to. Brothers, you found out in the end. When Jun Changshao said this, he turned his back to the black and white Rakshasa and looked up at the starry sky at a 40-degree angle. His melancholy eyes seemed to be full of stories. As expected, the black Rakshasa, who had always been relatively calm, didn't see any flaws. Instead, he was certain that he was Senior Tonggu's personal disciple. Heavens! The white Rakshasa, whose IQ had always been low, was now convinced. She said in disbelief, so little brother has such an identity. This is too explosive. Jun Changshao turned around and said bitterly, I wanted to interact with you too as a normal person, but in the end, I couldn't hide it. The system said, this is so fucking shameless. And the black and white Rakshasa, these two idiots. Host likes to trick people, so why did you create such good conditions for him? They couldn't be blamed, because the most well-known rumor about Senior Tonggu in the upper realm was that he once announced to the public that if anyone inherited the ancient warship in the future, they would be his personal disciple. For a long period of time, the martial artists were discussing the ancient warship, discussing who would become its successor. As for this Senior Tonggu, his Taoist name was Venerable Tonggu. He was one of the top powerhouses in the upper realm. The black and white Rakshasa had to respectfully refer to themselves as juniors. Let's put it this way. If the upper realm was compared to the falling star continent, Venerable Tonggu's strength and status could definitely reach the level of a martial emperor. A powerhouse of this level could be said to be a super overlord who could call the wind and summon the rain. There were so many geniuses who wanted to be his disciple that a super large city couldn't hold them all. The black and white Rakshasa had naturally heard of Venerable Tonggu, but they never thought that their little brother in the lower realm would have his ancient warship. Personal disciple. Definitely a personal disciple. No one questioned, suspecting that the ship was a fake or a stolen one. In terms of the materials and workmanship of the ancient warship, the twin ghosts of black and white could tell at a glance that it was definitely not something that the handsome man's interstellar warship could compare to. Even in the upper realm, it would still be a first-rate warship. If the lower realm could copy it, then why didn't he go to heaven? As for stealing, come on, that's Venerable Tonggu we're talking about, a top powerhouse from the upper realm. Even the guy who dared to steal the dragon egg back then might not dare to steal his ship even if he had 10 times the courage. In summary, his sworn brother was Venerable Tonggu's direct disciple, so the ancient warship must have been passed down to him. The scariest thing in the world was one's own imagination. What was even scarier was that everything was just a coincidence. What was the truth? Jun Changxiao's ancient worship was something he had found in the planar battlefield. Of course, the reason as to why the worship had sealed the planar battlefield in such a way was unknown. Little brother. The white Rakshasa leaned over and put a hand on his shoulder. She smiled and said, I'll be counting on you to take care of me in the future. She and the black Rakshasa could only be considered experts in the upper realm, but they were still far from the top. Now that they knew that their sworn brother had the stone statue ability and was Venerable Tong Gu's direct disciple, they immediately lowered their status. Right. He was even related to the even more awesome Seven Profound Sage Venerable. Oh my god! This was a golden thigh. In the Soul Continent, they had even considered letting the twin ghosts of black and white become accessories. Now, the situation was reversed. The twin ghosts of black and white almost hugged Jun Changxiao's thigh and said, Little brother, do you lack accessories on your legs? A beautiful misunderstanding caused the twin ghosts of black and white to take Jun Changxiao seriously and treat him as their brother. It was a pity that they didn't have a cigarette or a fire. Otherwise, one of them would have given him a cigarette and the other lit it. Good chance. A great chance. Seeing that their attitude toward him had changed greatly, Jun Changxiao took the opportunity to persuade them. Brothers, you won't be able to return to the upper realm anytime soon. Why don't you join the Sect of all times and help me? This. The twin ghosts of black and white fell silent. To be honest, the two of them were lone cultivators in the upper realm. They had never considered joining a sect, and they were used to living a carefree life. Jun Changxiao took a step back and said, If you don't agree, I won't force you. I can only find someone else to take up the position of protector. Protector? This position was not low in the sect. Under normal circumstances, apart from the patriarch and deputy patriarch, elders and protectors were the highest in the sect. The former had a certain amount of power, while the latter was a super fighter and had relatively more freedom. Sigh. Jun Changxiao shook his head, and said, In order to test me, Master threw me into the lower realm and developed the sect within a set time. Then, he would ascend to the upper realm. Looking at it now, it will probably take a long time. The twin ghosts of black and white were pleasantly surprised. Go Sheng's words revealed two things to them. First, he had been ordered by Venerable Tong Gu to develop the sect in the lower realm. Second, he would return to the upper realm in the future. If they helped their younger brother develop the sect, they would be able to meet Venerable Tong Gu when they ascended, right? If the old man was happy and gave them some opportunities, wouldn't that be wonderful? Younger brother. The twin ghosts of black and white stood in line and cupped their hands, saying, If you don't mind, we brothers are willing to join the Sect of all times and help you build a better tomorrow. Jun Changxiao said, I'm more than happy to have you two brothers joining. How could I mind? As he spoke, he took out two forms. The twin ghosts of black and white twitched their mouths. As expected of a sect leader, he always carried the sect's entry forms with him. Name: White Rakshasa, Black Rakshasa. Gender: if you write male, it's male. If you write female, it's female. After filling out the forms and stamping the sect seal, the twin ghosts of black and white officially joined the Sect of all times. As for the protector positions, they would have to return to the sect to make arrangements. If I say that my sect is the strongest in the Starfall continent, who dares to disagree? Jun Changxiao said proudly. The system said, in terms of top-tier strength, it is indeed the strongest. However, the host has to raise the sect's level first. No problem, no problem. Jun Changxiao didn't care about the sect's level at all. Moreover, the top-tier strength and core strength were increasing day by day, so it would be easy to raise the sect's level. Patriarch White Rakshasa said, do you want to take this interstellar warship with you? Brother. Jun Changxiao smiled and said, we are sworn brothers. In the future, when there are no outsiders, you don't have to call me Patriarch. Two martial emperors were a force to be reckoned with, so he had to treat them well. White Rakshasa and Black Rakshasa smiled and thought, To be able to befriend such a loyal little brother in the lower realm is a great opportunity. Whoosh! In the desolate plain, Jun Changshao drove the interstellar warship out of the space barrier and into the endless universe. Strange. On the way, he asked in confusion, why isn't the main mission over yet? Ding! Congratulations to the host for completing the second side mission. You have gained 100,000 contribution points. Ding! Sect contribution points, 1,900,007,0000. Ding! Sect contribution points overflow. Ding! Congratulations to the host for completing the main mission. You have gained the main mission reward. You have gained opening talisman, 3x1, 7 profound sunglow fragment scroll, 4x1. That's it. Hearing the notification, Jun Changshao was dumbfounded. The brand new opening talisman and 7 profound sunglow fragment scroll, 4, were good, but it was a main mission after all. The rewards were too little. Ding! The host has completed the main mission. The advanced store is temporarily replaced by supreme goods. Please purchase within 24 hours. Otherwise, it will return to its original state. Damn! Supreme goods. Jun Changshao's eyes lit up. At this moment, an unstoppable sign of advancement suddenly appeared in his body. Ding! The host has successfully broken through to rank 6 Sword and Martial Saint. Ding! The host. Ding! The host. Ding! The host has successfully broken through to rank 9 Sword and Martial Saint. After the series of notifications ended, Jun Changshao stood dumbfounded in place. After a while, he clenched his fists in ecstasy and roared in his mind, awesome, 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 yay yay yay. Thump. He collapsed to the ground like a pile of mud. Little brother. Bai Rakshasa exclaimed, why are you lying on the ground? Big brother. I'm a little weak, Jun Changshao said weakly. I need to rest for a while. You guys can control the warship for now. The expressions on the black and white Rakshasas' faces became interesting. He was so excited just now that he was jumping around like a monkey. Why was he suddenly weak? Little brother. Bai Rakshasa helped him up and said seriously, you're still very young. You should focus on cultivation. Don't indulge in beauty. Big brother. I'm weak because of side effects. It's not what you think. Chapter 1155. Jun Changshao couldn't help but feel paralyzed again after the effects of hard-to-retract blade ended. He had experienced this many times. Not only was he able to adapt, he even showed a look of enjoyment on his weak face. Don't get me wrong. Go Sheng wasn't a clean freak. He was enjoying himself because he had gained a lot from dealing with the handsome man. A side quest, a main quest. A brand new talisman for opening seals, a fragment of the 7 mysterious Sunglow scroll. And a huge amount of martial arts resources in the handsome man's ring. I can't take it anymore, Jun Changshao clutched his chest and said with an annoying look, I'm going to die of happiness. The system was speechless. I still have 10 experience talismans. Wouldn't it be easy to break through to Wu Xing's peak after crushing them? Jun Changxiao's face showed an even more annoying look of pride. The system finally found a chance to attack him and said, Host, you're thinking too much. Above the 9th grade Wu Sheng is the peak. To break through to the peak, you definitely need to complete an epic mission. Now that you mention it. Jun Changxiao said, unknowingly, I'm about to reach the peak of a realm. Time passes so quickly. It feels like there's no difficulty at all. The system really couldn't take it anymore. Of course, if Gosheng's words were heard by the powerhouses of various realms, they would definitely spit at him and drown him alive. Oh right. There's also a supreme item. Jun Changshao hurriedly opened the high-level store. The original item disappeared and was replaced by a big box with a question mark. Back then, he had obtained a supreme item in the mid-level store. he spent 5,000 contribution points and obtained a set of indestructible underwear, and socks. Most importantly, the life and death secret realm. Why was it the most important? Because the appearance of the life and death secret realm not only provided a better training ground for disciples, but also provided contribution points for a long time. It was simply too good. What good things can I get this time? Jun Changshao rubbed his hands and then clicked on the box with a question mark. There was no introduction, only a clear price of 100,000 contribution points. When he counted the zeros on his fingers, he held his head and roared, "This is too fucking expensive." There's a reason why it's expensive. I recommend the host to buy 100,000 stars, the system said. Jun Changshao said, if I buy it, it's equal to completing the main mission. I won't get any contribution points. At the very least, you'll be able to obtain a supreme grade item. If you obtain a set of clothes that can never be damaged, you can give it to exposed Kwang to wear. In the long run, you'll be able to save quite a bit of money, the system said. Fuck off. Good to get the Shenyuan sword, Sun Bao, and Pangu. The host has spent 100,000 contribution points and obtained a supreme item X1. It has been transferred into the space ring. Jun Changshao clutched his chest and said with a pained expression, if I can't get anything good, I might really die. Hearing this, Jun Changshao said, I'll die if I don't get anything good. Whoosh! His soul entered the spatial ring and stood in front of the supreme item in the form of a big box. As for what was inside, he would only know after touching it. Phew! Jun Changshao took a deep breath and put his hand on it. Buzz! Golden ripples appeared in the area where his palm touched the box. Ding! Congratulations to the host for getting the indestructible top X1, indestructible pants X1, indestructible black robe X1. They have been transferred to the spatial ring. What the fuck? Jun Changshao roared, you idiot, you were right. The first supreme item was underwear, and the second supreme item was clothes. Can it be any weirder? Besides, do I look like someone who lacks underwear and clothes? Ding! Congratulations to the host for getting the supreme item reward, 1 punch to kill X1. Ding! Congratulations to the host for getting the supreme item reward, 9 Heaven's Secret Realm X1. After hearing the notification, Jun Changshao really wanted to complain. Can't the system just finish the sentence? Why did it have to interrupt halfway? Whoosh! Whoosh! A token and a whirlpool entrance similar to the one in the life and death secret realm appeared in the spatial ring. This 9 Heavens mystery realm sounds pretty impressive. Jun Changshao hurriedly flipped through the manual. After reading it, he was overjoyed. I didn't waste the 100,000 contribution points. According to the introduction, the 9 Heavens secret realm was similar to the life and death secret realm. It could allow the warriors to engage in actual combat. Qingyang and the others will definitely improve their cultivation quickly if they go in. The life and death secret realm had many difficulties and 3 fixed levels. There were 9 levels in the 9 Heavens secret realm. Every time one passed through a level, they would gain corresponding experience points. It was indeed a holy land for martial arts. Of course, Jun Changshao knew that it would be difficult to pass through this kind of middle-rank secret realm. During this time, the host's cultivation has been improving. It seems that you are about to break through the peak of Wusheng. However, your disciple has fallen behind. The appearance of the 9 Heavens secret realm might be a turning point for the sect. I hope so. Jun Changshao was looking forward to it. Then, he held the token in his hand and wondered, it sounds like a martial skill. Shouldn't it be a secret manual? Shio! At this moment, the token suddenly shattered and turned into light that drilled into the sea of consciousness, allowing him to gain a lot of information in an instant. So this is the one-punch kill. Jun Changshao clenched his fist and smiled. At this moment, he had learned the one-punch kill through the memories that surged into his mind. As long as he was facing an enemy, he could achieve the true meaning of one-punch kill. Me. Invincible. Host, you are thinking too much. The system said, this kind of martial skill can only be used when the trigger conditions are met, so it has a lot of limitations. The trigger condition for one punch kill was that the enemy had to be arrogant enough in front of Jun Changshao. Only when the value reached the peak could it be used. Moreover, there were also side effects. After using one punch kill, all his hair would fall off. Even if he was weak for a year or two, Jun Changshao could accept it. But without a head of black hair, he couldn't bear it. The system said, the host has hair growth agents, are you still afraid of becoming bald? That's true. Jun Changshao held his chin and said, however, I'm afraid that this condition is not easy to meet. Arrogant. How did he define it? If he met an enemy who was much stronger than him, he would directly slap him without going through the procedure, not giving him a chance to gather the value at all. That would be useless. So, the system said, this can only be used as a trump card. The host still has a long way to go before he becomes invincible. Chapter 1156. Jun Changshao didn't dwell too much on the one-hit kill. Instead, he focused on the Nine Heavens Mystery Realm. The more benefits the disciples could obtain in a cultivation place like this, the more it would help the sect become the strongest. I'll return to the sect as soon as possible and settle this thing down. Jun Changshao looked at the indestructible clothes and pants and thought, I can give them to the Purple King. I won't have to worry about him exploding in the future. As the sect grew stronger, they naturally had to pay attention to their character. Hall Master Z's behavior of tearing his clothes apart when he fought seriously damaged the sect's image. The system said, as long as the host exists, it won't exist. What? Am I lacking in character? Bah! You're either running your mouth or scamming people all day long. You have the nerve to say that you're lacking in character? Damn it! Jun Changshao roared, I'm doing this for the sake of the sect. If we develop properly, we'll definitely explode in 100 years. It was undeniable that sometimes he was indeed asking for a beating. Sometimes he was indeed shameless. However, he was doing this for the sake of the sect. Otherwise, if he had taken the open path, the black and white double killers wouldn't have been tricked into joining. A general builds his success on the bones of thousands. Jun Changshao put his hands behind his back and said proudly, those who achieve great things don't care about trifles. The system was speechless. After opening the supreme item, Jun Changshao focused on the opening talisman, 3. Without a doubt, this was definitely used to unlock the third form. Should I modify it now? He still had an opening talisman to unlock the second form, so he was a little hesitant. Modify it. The system said, with the host's current cultivation as a 9th stage sword and martial saint, even if you don't use hard to keep saber, you'll still be able to kill your enemies. Why don't you quickly modify the third form and enrich your cheat library? That's reasonable. Jun Changshao waved his hand and took the modification spirit stone. Then, he released his soul to envelop it until it turned into a viscous liquid. Then, he took hard to keep saber and started the second modification. There was no need to talk about the process. Anyway, after an hour of fusion, hard to keep saber successfully leveled up. From the looks of it, it was the same as before. He didn't know what it would look like after it was unsheathed. It should be very cool. The shape of the sword in its second form was already very good, so Jun Changshao judged that the third form would definitely be even more handsome. Little brother. At that moment, White Rakshasa's voice sounded by his ear. What are you thinking about? Jun Changshao sighed and said, Master's temperament is strange, and he's usually a man of few words. Naturally, he wouldn't tell me anything. He even used the phrase, Master leads the way, but cultivation depends on the individual. This lie was enough to make the system believe that he really was Venerable Tong Gu's direct disciple. The White Rakshasa laughed. That's how powerful beings are. However, little brother, you're able to become Senior Tong Gu's personal disciple. That's something that many geniuses would be envious of. The Black Rakshasa, who was controlling the warship, said, under normal circumstances, warships that can travel through space require high-grade energy stones to drive. Little brother, you can find some to try. I've tried. Jun Changshao said, it can only increase the speed of flight, but it can't travel through space. What kind of energy stones do you use? The Black Rakshasa asked. Jun Changshao took out a hexagram stone. This. The Black Rakshasa took it. After sensing it for a bit, he said with disdain, this kind of trash is nothing more than a low-grade stone in the upper realm. It's definitely difficult to drive the ancient battleship to travel through space. Jun Changshao was speechless. The hexagram stone was the highest-grade spirit stone he had ever seen, but it was described as trash like a low-grade stone. The Black Rakshasa pointed at the formation driving system used to drive the interstellar battleship. Only the energy stones embedded here can be used to travel through space. Is that so? Jun Changshao hurriedly looked over. Ha! The warship's driving system is very similar to the one in the ancient battleship. If there was a difference, it would be that the energy stones embedded in the energy slots looked larger than the hexagram stone. The aura emanating from them was thicker. Could it be that there's an energy source even stronger than the 9 heavens continent spirit stones in the mortal realm? Jun Changshao asked. The 9 heavens continent? The Black Rakshasa said, I've heard of this plane. Although its strength is not bad, it can only barely be ranked among the top among the tens of thousands of planes. There are many more that are stronger than it. Such as the All-Heaven continent, the Starry Ocean continent. The White Rakshasa said, these planes are all very powerful. The energy sources they have are also much stronger than that hexagram stone. Jun Changshao smiled bitterly. He had thought that he knew enough about the mortal realm after entering the planar battlefield. After hearing what the Black Rakshasa and White Rakshasa said, he realized that what he knew was just a drop in the ocean. The planar battlefield was only a battlefield. It was still chosen by the upper realm to enter, so it did not mean that all the planes were gathered. There were still many powerful planes that had not entered. The reason? Too powerful. Letting them in would affect the balance. As for the 2 continents mentioned by the White Rakshasa, not only were their overall strength strong, but they even had people in the upper realm. Oh, right, little brother. The Black Rakshasa said that Navigation King should have high-grade spirit stones in his interspatial ring. You can use them as energy. Perhaps it can allow the archaic warship to travel through the universe. Let me see. Jun Changshao fused into the oversized interspatial ring. Sure enough, he found 10,000 large-grade spirit stones that were different from other spirit stones. The heaven and earth attribute contained within them were 10 times stronger than the hexagram stone. I'm rich. Jun Changshao covered his face and laughed. One of these large-grade spirit stones was equivalent to 10 hexagram stones. That was equivalent to 100 natural spirit stones in the falling star continent. After opening the 9 heavens mystery realm and now obtaining high-grade spirit stones, not only would the sect's overall strength increase, but it would also be able to nurture the core disciples and higher-ups in the shortest time possible. Little brother, the spirit stones have been embedded. In the universe, the archaic battlefield was summoned and floated quietly. The White Rakshasa took out the hexagram stone embedded in the energy slot and replaced it with large-grade spirit stones. We can go now. The Black Rakshasa crossed her arms. Jun Changshao closed his eyes and fused into the engine. With a bang, he was plastered to the door of the control room. Whoosh! In the vast universe, the archaic warship was at full power. It was several times faster than the interstellar warship as it sped towards the falling star continent. In the blink of an eye, it was as if it had jumped over instead of flying. Heavens, this is too fast. Jun Changshao's expression froze as he was supported by the White Rakshasa. The Black Rakshasa said, if we have high-grade spirit stones, senior archaic warship can travel even faster. It probably won't take more than 2 hours to travel between 2 distant planes. Jun Changshao excitedly said, this is a must-have item when going on a journey and robbing a house. Just as Go Sheng used high-grade spirit stones to activate the archaic warship's ability to travel through the universe, several dozen Crimson Sea Continent cultivators outside a small stronghold in the planar battlefield revealed looks of fear. In front of them, the Earth Battalion leader was covered in wounds and lying on the ground. Tap, tap, tap. A lithe figure walked over and then stopped in front of the Earth Battalion leader and stepped on his face. She raised her head and looked at the group of terrified people with her nose. She said proudly, "Go back and tell your boss to pay the ransom. Otherwise, just wait to collect this guy's corpse." Gulp. The Crimson Sea Continent cultivators swallowed their saliva. Holy crap! Why is this plane that has just replaced the falling star continent is even more powerful than that crazy guy? Chapter 1157. The Soul Race continent that replaced the falling star continent had already arrived at the planar battlefield. Because they had just entered, they did not engage in any large-scale battles to obtain merit points, so their stronghold was very small. The Scarlet Sea continent, which loved to bully new players, immediately rushed over after receiving the news. In the end, the Earth-ranked expert leading them was beaten to the ground by the Rose Queen. In terms of rank, this woman was definitely a heaven-ranked expert in the planar battlefield. Because she was infinitely close to shattering the void, she was even stronger than the other heaven-ranked experts. The Scarlet Sea continent bullying the Soul Race continent was no less tragic than bullying the Falling Star continent when they had just arrived. Why was that? Because Jun Changshao, who had just arrived, could only rely on his unstoppable blade. Without any trump cards, he was nothing. Queen Rose was a strong woman who had fought all over the world. She would definitely beat anyone who came her way. She was completely unreasonable. As for extortion, sorry, she had invaded many planes before. Not only was she proficient in this, but she was also thousands of years older than Jun Changshao. The Scarlet Sea continent's martial artists didn't manage to gain any advantage. They returned to their own stronghold dejectedly and informed Hong Yao of the matter. Hong Yao immediately flew into a rage and said, "Are all new planes so arrogant now?" They had been bullied badly enough by Jun Changshao, almost kneeling and bowing their heads. Now, an even more arrogant continent had come. This was intolerable. "Palace Lord, let's bring people over," the Blue Sea Palace Elder said. "I don't believe that a new plane can be stronger than the Falling Star continent and more arrogant than Jun Changshao. Our Scarlet Sea continent has been mocked by the other planes recently. If we continue to tolerate being bullied by another plane, we won't be able to raise our heads when we go out," another elder said angrily. The upper echelons of the Blue Sea Palace strongly suggested that the Palace Lord send their strongest forces to teach the Soul Race continent a lesson. They would also let the other planes know that the Scarlet Sea continent was not to be trifled with. For glory, fight, fight, fight. All right. Hong Yao stood up and slapped the armrest. "Send people to follow me to the Soul Race continent's stronghold." That day, thousands of streaks of light flew out of the Scarlet Sea continent's stronghold. About an hour later, the Yellow, Profound, and Earth-ranked experts of the Scarlet Sea continent all unleashed their powerful auras as they gathered outside the stronghold of the Soul Race. With such a lineup, they could totally go to the slaughtering Azura arena and fight. This also meant that Hong Yao was really going all out for the sake of the plane's honor. The main reason was that Go Sheng had bullied him too much. Now that that fellow had finally left and was stripped of his qualifications by the upper realm, his stronghold was in a state of temporary closure. In the end, an even more arrogant Soul Clan continent had arrived. Plop. Within the stronghold, the Scarlet Sea continent's name was thrown to the ground. Several Spiritas martial artists moved over a chair and Empress Rose sat down valiantly. Looking at the several thousand Crimson Sea continent martial artists gathered outside, she smiled and said, "It's just a ransom. Is there a need to make such a big scene?" As expected of the Empress of the Soul Race, her style was strong. Hong Yao sneered and said, "You are the master of the Soul Race's stronghold?" Rose Queen clasped her fingers together and said calmly, Please call me your majesty. Hong Yao's face turned cold, and he said, "You'd better hand over my people quickly, or else," boom. Suddenly, an explosion sounded, and dust filled the sky. Rose Queen, who was originally sitting in the stronghold, was now standing where Hong Yao was. As for the latter, he flew thousands of feet away and sank into a mountain with a ferocious expression. Instant kill with a punch. Go Sheng, who had just entered back then, definitely could not have done this. Rose Queen retracted her aura and said indifferently, "No money, no people." It was understandable for a man to be arrogant and domineering, but for a woman to be superior, this was unbelievable. All hail the Empress! Long live the Empress! In the stronghold, the Soul Race martial artists shouted loudly. Palace Lord! The expressions of the Jade Sea Palace's upper echelons changed. Hong Yao, who was in the sunken mountain, endured the intense pain and said with difficulty, "Go, boom! Boom! Boom!" Before he could finish speaking, a powerful explosion and waves of air burst out. In his slightly blurry vision, he could only see his own martial artists unlocking new positions and flying out. Thousand hands plucking flowers. Whoosh 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 whoosh, slender jade hands bloomed all over the area where the thousands of Scarlet Sea Continent martial artists were, and then began to beat them up like flowers in the prime of their lives. In a moment, everyone, including the upper echelons of the Jade Sea Palace, was on the ground. Some of their faces were swollen, and some of their teeth were knocked out. The scene was too horrible to look at. Swoosh! Rose Queen retracted the green attribute she had released and floated proudly in the air. She looked at Hong Yao and said, "Go back and tell your boss that each head is worth 10,000 spirit stones. If he doesn't deliver them by tomorrow, they will all die." The handsome man had caused a ruckus in the Soul Race continent, causing immeasurable losses, so she had to find other planes to get more resources to compensate. However, Rose Queen did not know that the guy she had killed in an instant was the boss of the Scarlet Sea continent. Hong Yao was stunned. This woman's strength was too terrifying. If he had obtained information that Rose Queen was so strong that Jun Goxing had to use 3 trump cards to barely defeat her, it would be very easy to understand. Did you guys hear? The Soul Race continent that replaced the Falling Star continent is not a pushover. They destroyed the Scarlet Sea continent as soon as they arrived. Damn, there's such a thing. The Scarlet Sea continent's palace master Hong led a large group of people to attack, but they were all defeated. In the end, they had to spend millions of spirit stones to return to their base. The news that the Soul Race continent had defeated the Scarlet Sea continent as soon as they arrived spread in the planar battlefield, causing a huge commotion. However, just a day later, an even more shocking news came. The Soul Race continent's cultivators went out to train and had a conflict with the Lingyun continent's cultivators. Then, the leader of the base led people to attack the base and forced the other side to hand over a large amount of martial resources. 2 planes in 2 days. This Soul Race continent was quite strong. City Lord. In the 9 Heavens continent's base, an upper echelon reported, the new Soul Race continent's level is higher than the Falling Star continent. The person in charge is called Rose Queen, and her strength is heaven. Mo Shangxing was speechless. The patriarch of the sect of all times just left, and now there's Rose Queen. Are the lower planes so fierce? The elder said, Rose Queen is stronger than Jun Changshao. According to the information from the front lines, she seems to be preparing to cause trouble for the Xingxian continent. Mo Shangxing shook his head and said, she's only been here for a few days, and she's already causing trouble everywhere. Sooner or later, she'll become the target of public criticism. However, he paused for a moment and said with a serious expression, this woman is so unbridled. Perhaps she has someone backing her. Send orders to the people in the continent and have them gather information about the Soul Race continent. The sooner the better. Yes. Just as Rose Queen was about to set off a rose storm in the planar battlefield, Jun Changshao had already returned to the sect and spent 20,000 contribution points to buy the 7 profound sunglow fragment scroll. His contribution points were now at 70,000. It could be said that he was very happy. Sigh. I wonder who's the unlucky one now. Judging from the situation with Rose Queen and the twin black-white devils, Jun Changshao had a rough idea that the 7 profound sunglow fragment scroll he had bought must have been stolen from somewhere else. The system said, the host bought it with contribution points. How can it be considered stealing? Damn! Jun Changshao rolled his eyes and said, it's true that I spent money to buy it, but it was also stolen by the system. Don't try to deny it. Everyone knows. Chapter 1158. In a certain dimension. In an area with high mountains and dangerous terrain. Dozens of warships with powerful auras were suspended in mid-air. The martial artists standing on them had different appearances. Whoosh whoosh. In front of the warships, in front of a stone wall that was as smooth as a mirror, several powerful martial artists stood at different angles. Majestic energy surged around them as if they were endlessly attacking the barrier. Second brother, could this be a scam? On one of the warships, a dark-skinned martial artist asked in a low voice. Impossible. The martial artist called Second Brother said, several masters have joined forces to attack it for so long and still can't break it. There must be a remnant scroll hidden inside. The Starry Sea King is full of lies. Would he really tell us the location? The dark-skinned man questioned. Second Brother sneered. With the temperament of the masters, if that guy really dares to lie to us, he'll be hunted down by the entire universe. That's true. The dark-skinned man frowned. However, the Starry Sea King is as slippery as a loach. It wasn't easy for the masters to catch him. How could they let him go? Ha ha ha. Second Brother laughed. That guy likes to rob other dimensions. The masters kept him alive in the hope that he would come and take advantage of us when he's free. I see. The dark-skinned man suddenly understood. That's right. The Starry Sea King they were talking about was the handsome man who was killed by Jun Changshao. As for the big secret he mentioned before his death, it was also related to the 7 profound sunglow fragment scroll 4. The 7 profound sunglow fragment was regarded as a top-level martial art in the upper realm. It attracted all kinds of martial artists, let alone in the mortal world. Therefore, this secret was indeed at the level of big secret. It was a pity. Jun Changshao did not take the usual path. He did not give the handsome man a chance to escape with the secret as an excuse. He simply cut off his head. After all, he was controlled by the stone statue at that time and locked onto the black and white double ghosts. If he ran twice, he would be raising a tiger and taking the opportunity to harm himself and his family. This was definitely not Jun Changshao's style. Boom! At this moment, an explosion came from the smooth stone wall. The defensive barrier that seemed to have existed for a long time was finally broken by 5 masters whose strength was not inferior to the handsome man's. Whoosh! 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 After the fragments of flowing light scattered, they directly flew in and landed in a cave that emitted an ancient aura. They locked onto a stone platform in the central region. But there was nothing on it. Damn it! A burly middle-aged man said angrily, that guy lied to us. There's nothing here. A man with cold eyes gritted his teeth and said, the navigation king should know how to enter and took the scroll first. So, we worked for nothing for a month. I told you, this guy can't be trusted. Now, I've been played like a monkey by that guy. The rage in the eyes of the 5 experts was about to incinerate the entire cave abode. Humph. The white-haired old man in a long robe sneered, does that guy really think that he can sit back and relax after deceiving us? Shwa! With a wave of his hand, a compass appeared out of thin air. Buzz! Infusing his soul power into the compass began to flicker before finally stopping in front of a certain location. The white-haired old man said, let's go and find him. Swish! Swish! In just a moment, the dozens of battleships hanging outside the stone wall pierced through the sky, penetrated the space barrier, and disappeared without a trace. They had misunderstood the handsome man. In fact, before breaking through the space barrier, the fourth scroll of the seven mysterious sunglow was indeed placed on the stone platform. But later, it disappeared and reappeared in Gosheng's interspatial ring. This was not considered stealing, because the scroll sealed in the cave abode was an ownerless item. If the handsome man, who was lining up on the Yellow Springs Road, knew that his big secret was easily obtained by Jun Changshao, he would definitely come back to life and die again. In the desolate plain, 5 experts with extraordinary cultivation bases stood outside the palace ruins. Looking at the decapitated corpse of the interstellar navigation king, their eyes were filled with disbelief. This guy was actually killed. The burly middle-aged man said in a deep voice, "The navigation king's strength was not inferior to any of us. But now, his head was chopped off. I'm afraid the culprit is no small matter. The interspatial ring is gone, and so is the battleship. I'm afraid he met someone of the same trade," the cold man deduced. The white-haired old man said, "We let him go for more than half a year. During this time, he must have snatched a lot of good things. But now, someone else got it first. It's a bit unpleasant. The resources are not important. What's important is that the fourth scroll was also snatched," the cold man said. "Old Wu?" the burly middle-aged man asked, "Can you find out who the culprit is?" The white-haired old man sat down and said, "I'll use the time reversal technique. You guys protect me." "Okay." The 4 immediately stood in 4 directions and waited solemnly. Swish! Swish! The white-haired old man made a complicated hand seal and then pointed at his forehead. His whole body seemed to have merged with the surrounding space. In his sea of consciousness, scenes of what had happened here appeared. Sect of all times. Jun Changshao did not know that after he committed the crime, someone would actually use the time reversal technique to investigate. At this moment, he was standing at the back of the mountain, pointing at the entrance of the whirlpool that had just been set up. This is the 9-heaven mystery realm. There are 9 levels of heaven inside. Every level is a test. If you can pass the test, you will receive the corresponding reward. Patriarch, what reward? Li Tiantian asked. Jun Changshao said, "You'll know when you go in." Okay. Li Tiantian strode forward and was the first to enter the 9-heaven mystery realm. Poor child. Su Xiaoma shook his head. Even Li Qingyang, who had always been steady, gave Li Tiantian a sympathetic look and secretly prayed that he could come out safely. As senior disciples of the sect, they knew better than anyone else that if the patriarch took out a new mystery realm, he would definitely be tortured to death. Sima Zhongda, Lin Jiangheng, and the others wanted to go in, but seeing that their senior brothers who were more senior than them did not move, they suppressed their thoughts and quietly waited for Li Tiantian to explore. Swish! About half an hour later, a stream of light shot out from the whirlpool like a cannonball, and then there was a boom sound. Everyone turned their heads in unison and saw Li Tiantian falling down from the sunken mountain with his arms and legs spread out. Sun Bukong ran over and put his hand on his pulse, saying, "He's not dead, he's still alive." The disciples immediately heaved a sigh of relief. As long as he was not dead, there was no big problem. If Li Tiantian knew, he would definitely stand up and curse, "What happened to the sect's affection? What happened to the sect's affection? What happened to the sect's affection? You big bastards!" Jun Changshao said, "This is the result of not passing the test. So, before you enter the 9-heaven mystery realm, you must be careful." Yi Xingchen walked out and said proudly, "I'll try." Swish! He stepped into the 9-heaven mystery realm. Swish! The scene in front of him changed and was replaced by a strange scene. There were a few options in the sky. They were easy mode, normal mode, hard mode, hell mode. Yi Xingchen smiled coldly. When he entered the life-death mystery realm for the first time, he chose the hell mode and was instantly killed by the Saint Beast. There was no other way. After all, he had just entered the martial king realm. The current me. I'm no longer the previous me. So. Pei Aniu clenched his fists tightly, and a martial emperor aura seemed to emerge from his body. He said with a majestic voice, I choose the easy mode. Chapter 1159. Yi Xingqian had changed. He actually chose the easy mode in the Nine Heavens secret realm. Oh my god. This would never have happened in the past. After all, Night Emperor was one of the strongest in the Falling Star continent. When he chose the easy mode in the life and death secret realm, he was traumatized by the hell mode. Moreover, after cultivating in the sect for so many years, although he still looked arrogant on the outside, he had changed a lot in his heart. To be exact, Night Emperor was no longer as reckless as before. This wasn't cowardice. This was a change in the truest sense. At this moment, he could even sing along with Jun Changshao. Swish, after choosing the easy mode, another 9 options appeared. They were the 5 heavens with metal, wood, water, fire, earth, wind, thunder, ice, and martial. Yi Xingqian quickly understood a thing or two from the words. But what did Wu Zhongtian mean? Could it be related to martial arts or martial arts? This is it. Aonyo chose Wu Zhongtian. His physical body was already at its peak and he was more focused on improving his martial arts realm. If Wu Zhongtian could help him with his martial arts, it would be great. Swish, suddenly, the scene before his eyes changed, revealing a dense mass of weapons of various shapes and sizes, and they emanated formidable might as they floated in midair. So it's related to weapons. Yi Xingqian was depressed. If he knew, he would have chosen any of the 5 heavens. At least it would correspond to the 5 elements heaven reflection technique. If it was a weapon, it wouldn't be related to the martial arts realm. Swish! Swish! At this moment, a sword that was floating in the distance flew over. It was like a peacock spreading its tail. It transformed into countless swords and flew over like a rainstorm. Yi Xingqian's expression changed slightly, and he immediately used his movement technique to dodge. However, it was fine if he didn't move. The moment he moved, the sword flew over even faster. He could only twist his butt and body to dodge in between the gaps. I'm an expert, an expert, an expert. I'm invincible in the world. I'm not going to stop until I'm drunk tonight. The background music that was very compatible with Yi Xingqian started playing. It was as if he was drunk, dancing the most sensual dance in the Rain of Swords. Every movement was in sync with the background music. He could be said to be a maniac. As Anyo had been building his physical body all year round, as well as doing morning exercises every day, there was no need to comment on his body's coordination and flexibility. There was only one word to describe it: strong. However, after dodging the first wave of sword rain, the second wave followed closely behind, not giving him any chance to catch his breath. Shwa! Yi Xingqian made a prompt decision and grabbed at the void. His personal divine weapon, Li Perish and Sacrifice to the Heavens, appeared instantly. Then, he swung it up and smashed it towards the oncoming rain of swords. Boom! 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 Second senior brother. Outside the secret realm, Su Xiaomo whispered, "Can junior brother Yi make it through? I heard from the heavens that there is a mode similar to the life and death secret realm. If he chooses the hell mode, I'm afraid he will be in trouble again." Li Qingyang said. After about an hour, everyone waited anxiously. Finally, they saw Yi Xingqian walk out of the 9 Heavens secret realm. The arrogance on his face was even stronger than before he entered. Disciple Yi Xingqian has passed Wu Zhongtian's test. A deep voice could be heard from the secret realm. He passed. Junior brother Yi is awesome. Li Qingyang, Xiao Ziji, and the rest surrounded him. Before they could ask what was going on, Yi Xingqian's body fell straight to the ground with his face facing down. There were sword marks on his back that were almost torn to shreds. Zoro said, "I have never been injured from the back." Night Emperor said, I have never been injured from the front. This, Li Qingyang, Xiao Ziji, and the rest were dumbfounded. Junior brother Yi had passed and ended up in such a miserable state. One could imagine how terrifying the Nine Heavens secret realm was. Junior brother. Li Qingyang helped him up and asked, "What mode did you choose?" Normal mode. Yi Xingchen still cared about his figure. Hence, he would never say that he had chosen the easy mode. Li Qingyang said, "Let's choose the easy mode." All right. Yi Xingchen was strong and they recognized his strength. They would not be stupid enough to challenge the normal mode. After the disciples made their choice, they entered the Nine Heavens secret realm one by one and chose a level of heaven according to their attributes. Disciple Li Qingyang has passed Lei Zhongtian's test. Disciple Xiao Ziji has passed Tu Zhongtian's test. Disciple Su Xiaoma has passed Feng Zhongtian's test. The few core disciples entered one after another and passed the test after an hour. However, they were also exhausted like Yi Xingchen and fell to the ground. The process was not important. What was important was the result. Although they were miserable, they had a better understanding of martial arts and their attributes. Especially Su Xiaoma, who had fallen behind his fellow sect members. After passing Feng Zhongtian's test, not only did his speed increase, his realm also increased by one stage. Ding! Disciple Su Xiaoma has passed Feng Zhongtian's test and increased by one stage. Host has received 10 contribution points. When Jun Changshao, who was sipping tea outside the secret land, heard the system announcement, an ecstatic expression appeared on his face. Disciple breaking through one stage in the Nine Heavens secret realm actually rewarded him with 10 contribution points. If tens of thousands of people broke through by one stage, wouldn't that be tens of thousands multiplied by 10? That would be a few 100,000 contribution points. Ha ha ha. Ha ha ha. Jun Changshao could not help but laugh out loud. The disciples who were queuing up turned around and shook their heads. Patriarch did not take his medicine on time. The sect was already used to Jun Changshao's sudden laughter. Hence, they did not think much of it and continued to focus on the Nine Heavens secret realm. After a day, tens of thousands of disciples entered the Nine Heavens secret realm to take the test. In the end, only a few thousand people passed. If it was the training tower or life and death secret realm, once one failed, one would have to rest for a few days. However, the middle grade Nine Heavens secret realm was more humane. After failing, one would only rest for 4 hours. Even if one failed the test, there would be some consolation and a small amount of martial arts experience points as well as a small amount of understanding of the Feng Zhongtian's attributes. Of course, the rewards for passing the test were very generous. Among the 1,000 people who passed, at least 800 of them broke through one stage from their original realm. Those who did not break through had just broken through. The low-grade life and death secret realm was considered a normal cheat. The middle-grade Nine Heavens secret realm was considered a high-level cheat. If I want to enter a high-grade secret realm, wouldn't I be able to fly in the sky and burrow into the ground? Wouldn't I be able to explode the Japanese's head from 800 miles away? Jun Changshao's eyes lit up. He was feeling super good right now. Because he had been drinking tea for an entire day, he was about to have gallstones. More than 800 disciples passed the test and obtained more than 8,000 contribution points for no reason. 8,000 a day. 8,000 10 days. 800,000 100 days. 1,000 days, plop. Jun Changshao clutched his chest and fell from the chair with a smile on his face. Not good. Patriarch fainted again. Chapter 1160. The 9 levels of heaven in the 9 heaven mystery realm corresponded to the 9 elements of heaven and earth. Especially Wu Zhongtian, not only would he be rewarded with experience points, but he would also be able to increase his weapon compatibility. After Yi Xingchen recovered, he summoned Li Shang to heaven again and felt that he was more compatible with it than before. He would definitely be able to increase his power. As for the disciples who passed the test, regardless of their cultivation or understanding of the heaven and earth elements, they would all be greatly improved. This nine-heaven mystery realm is really a holy land for leveling up. Jun Changshao shook his head in joy. Unfortunately, I'm still in a weakened state. Otherwise, I would have gone in long ago. There was still a long time before the cooldown of the space-time mystery realm refreshed. Hence, Go Sheng could only drink tea and fish. Of course, he had thought of entering the beginner-grade space-time mystery realm, but it shared the same cooldown as the intermediate-grade space-time mystery realm. Hence, there was no time acceleration. During this period, I can only be a pretty boy. Jun Changshao said as he lay on the rocking chair. After that, there were disciples who passed the test every day, earning him at least 5,000 contribution points. He was so happy that he almost went into shock again. According to the manual, the nine-heaven mystery realm would refresh once every 7 days. Before the first batch of disciples were done, those who passed the test first could challenge it again. It could be an endless cycle. If I get 5,000 contribution points every day, I'm going to be rich. However, after 2 days, something terrible happened. When the contribution points reached 20,000, although the disciples who passed the test and leveled up, they did not give Jun Changshao any rewards. The system said, obviously, there is a limit to the mystery realm. It can't satisfy the host's needs. Hence, it gives endless contribution points. Jun Changshao was devastated. After the first cooldown period, Li Qingyang, Xiao Ziji and the rest continued to challenge. Some were rewarded after passing the test, while others were not. After some investigation, they found out that the disciples who gave Jun Changshao contribution points did not challenge the same mystery realm at the beginning. Those who did not receive any rewards challenged the same mystery realm. Understood. The system said, every mystery realm will reward 20,000 contribution points. Once the contribution points are maxed out, the host will not receive any benefits. Jun Changshao hugged his head and said, I've already used a cheat to this extent, so why can't I be a little more ferocious? He calmed down and thought about it carefully. 20,000 for the first layer of heaven, and 180,000 for the 9th layer of heaven. Not only was it not a loss to spend 100,000 to buy the 9 heavens mystery realm, but it was also a great profit. This was a huge profit. This was because after 3 cooldowns, tens of thousands of disciples had entered the secret realm one after another. Their cultivations had all increased, especially Wuzong and Martial King. As long as they passed the challenge, they would break through. They already had all kinds of cultivation facilities and high-grade spirit-gathering formations, as well as pills for breaking through major realms. Now, they even had a secret realm where they could enter every 7 days to raise their cultivation. The sect of all times was really going to soar. Li Qingyang, Xiao Ziji, and the other core disciples had been training in the training tower, spirit-gathering spell, and life and death secret realm, 9 skies secret realm, and mid-rank space secret realm every day. Their spiritual roots and physical strength had been refined to an extremely high level, and they had so many cultivation tools to assist them. If there was no strong resistance, breaking through Wusheng's level would be child's play. Stomp! Jun Changshao walked out of the vortex of the space secret realm in high spirits. Sensing the cultivation of the 9th grade sword and martial saints, he said proudly, if the sect of all times can develop steadily for another 2 or 3 years, it will be a piece of cake for us to become the most powerful sect in the Starfall continent. Actually, they were already the most powerful sect now. Which sect on the continent had 2 martial emperors? Of course, Jun Changshao was still a little worried. After all, although the black and white double ghosts were powerful, they were still from the upper realm. If the system did not acknowledge them, then they would be doomed. It's still the safest and most reliable way for me and my disciples to become stronger and dominate the Starfall continent with our strength. As he spoke, Jun Changshao crushed 10 experience talismans. After a while, a notification sounded in his ears. Ding! The host has successfully broken through to the peak of sword and martial saints. Peak already? Sigh, it was too easy. Jun Changshao jumped onto the main hall and spread his arms with a look of enjoyment. Come on, the epic level mission. Ding! The host has reached the peak of Wusheng. Requirement met. Epic level mission activated. Ding! The host has reached the peak of Sword Saint. Requirement met. Epic level mission activated. After the notification ended, Jun Changshao opened the data panel and clicked on the first epic level mission. Epic level mission, 11, mission details. The Galactic Seafarer King has countless enemies. The host has killed him and successfully shouldered all of his grudges. Please be sure to deal with whatever comes your way. Mission failure, killed by the enemy of the Galactic Seafarer King. Mission reward. After reading Sure 11, Jun Changshao squatted down and took a puff of his cigar. Then, he roared in his heart, why should I shoulder all the grudges he owes me? The system also roared, damn, this seems to be another spoiler. Oh, right. Jun Changshao calmed down and said seriously, doesn't this mission mean that someone will come looking for trouble with me? The system was speechless. It was normal for the host to guess such an obvious epic level mission. Jun Changshao didn't think too much about the Galactic Seafarer King's enemy. Then, he clicked on the second epic level mission. Epic level mission, 12. Mission details, please protect your loved ones. Mission reward. Seeing that there was no mission failure notification, Jun Changshao was stunned for a while and said, that's it? That's it. It was so clean and neat. Jun Changshao fell into deep thought. The original host was born poor. His parents died early and he didn't hide his identity. Therefore, he didn't have any loved ones. The system said, haven't the host always boasted that the sect of all times is your home and that you're his parent? Li Qingyang and Xiao Ziji can be considered your loved ones. That makes sense. Jun Changshao suddenly understood. The next second, his eyes suddenly became cold and sharp. He said, this mission is a spoiler. Someone will hurt them and they need my protection. That should be it. Crack. Jun Changshao clenched his fists and said with a murderous look, if anyone dares to hurt my disciples, I'll send them to hell. Since he was given an epic level mission to protect his loved ones, it meant that the enemy was very powerful. With his personality, he definitely wouldn't tolerate anything that could hurt his disciples. I understand now. Suddenly, Jun Changshao had an idea. He said, the Galactic Seafarer King's enemies are all transferred to me. If they attack, they might hurt my disciples. In that case, the system said, it seems like there are two epic level missions, but it's actually no different from one. Jun Changshao raised his head and looked at the boundless sky. A solemn expression appeared on his face as he said, those enemies of the handsome man, if you dare to cause trouble in the falling star continent, I will make sure that none of you will be able to return alive. Chapter 1161. The two epic level missions were full of spoilers. First of all, he had Jun Changshao act as if he was telling him to deal with whatever came his way. Wasn't this telling him that his enemies would come looking for trouble? The second one was even simpler. Family? Wasn't that his precious disciple? Even Aunt Wang and the villagers, who had taken care of him after transmigrating, could be counted as family too. Host, please protect your family. Sure, the 12th's brief mission revealed too much information. It also made Jun Changshao instantly become serious. He might not be serious normally, and even fainted from excitement when calculating contribution points. However, when it came to critical moments, he would not be careless at all. The handsome man's enemy must be from another dimension. Jun Changshao said, if they come looking for trouble, they will definitely cross the universe. So, we need to be prepared in advance. Black and white guardians. Here. Set up defenses outside the falling star continent. Forbid anyone from crossing the universe to enter. Yes. Swish. Swish. After the black and white double ghosts became the Sect's guardians, they received their first mission. They hovered outside the falling star continent to guard and stop any powerhouses who might suddenly attack. Elder Zhen. Jun Changshao said again, activate the Sect protecting formation. Buzz! The Sect protecting formation with Iron Bone Mountain as the center and extending to Iron Bone Town was activated. The materialized light barrier gradually disappeared. Jun Changshao also ordered the disciples and townspeople not to go out during this period to avoid danger. Second senior brother. Su Xiaoma said in surprise, "There's a situation." Li Qingyang said with a serious expression, "The Sect protecting formation hasn't been activated for a long time." To be precise, not only had the Sect protecting formation not been activated, but he also rarely saw the patriarch so serious. This meant that something big might happen soon. "Let's go." Yi Xingqian said, "Let's go cultivate." Something that could make the patriarch so serious was definitely not simple. The only thing they could do was to improve their cultivation as soon as possible. Because of Jun Changshao's successive orders, the atmosphere in the Sect of all times became serious. Jiang Ye, the Ning brothers, and the other higher-ups also began to focus on cultivation. Ding Xingwang and Gong Sun Haohai had also entered closed-door training. Ding Xingwang had already broken through to 8th grade Wusheng, while the latter was only one step away from Wusheng's level. The one who trained the hardest was the Purple King. As long as the cooldown of the Nine-Heaven Mystery Realm was over, he would immediately enter Wu Zhongtian to train. As a noble beast, it could not practice human martial arts. However, as long as it passed the trial of the Secret Realm, it could still obtain the corresponding experience points and weapon compatibility. As for Jun Changshao's contract beast, for instance, Xiao Longlong and Xiao Maxian could also rely on the Nine Heavens Mystic Realm to increase their strength. There was also the Purple Lightning Spirit Tiger, the contract beast with the least sense of presence and the most eye-catching appearance. It would also frequently enter the Thunder Heaven to cultivate, increasing its own strength and control of lightning. It could be said that, the Nine Heavens Mystic Realm represented 9 different heavens of different attributes. Regardless of whether it was a human or a beast, as long as their attributes were compatible, they could enter to cultivate. What about those without attributes? For instance, Sword Cultivator Zhou Hong and Blade Cultivator Ma Yongning? They could also enter to cultivate, because Wu Zhongtian was focused on this aspect. The cultivation trend in the Sect of all times was stronger than before. Although Jun Changshao had made many arrangements and prepared for a rainy day, he was still a little worried. The system said, "The enemies of the handsome guy are definitely not weak. If they appear in the falling star continent, the disaster from 10,000 years ago will happen again." So, Jun Changshao sat in the main hall with his fingers interlocked and his chin resting on the back of his hand. He frowned and said, "That's why I asked the Black and White Guardians to stand guard outside. If they want to fight, they have to fight outside the universe. They can't affect this place." Nothing could happen to the falling star continent, because the main mission had not been completed. Although Gosheng did not want to be a hero who saved the world, he had done so many times over the years. For example, he took care of the Soul Race Hall Master, blackmailed the Demon Emperor's Gate, swept through the dimensional battlefield, dealt with Emperor Jinwei, attacked the Soul Race continent, and killed the Galactic Navigation King. However, after saving the world so many times, only the dimensional battlefield was recognized by the world. It was mainly because they did not know. Just like this time, the wind was blowing before the storm. They were still living their lives as usual, completely unaware of the danger that was coming from the universe. Dimensional battlefield. The major planes were depressed because the Soul Race continent was too strong. If anyone provoked them, the leader of the stronghold would visit them personally. They could not tolerate it. They had to teach her a lesson. Under the Scarlet Sea continent's operation, the bullied planes formed an alliance and began to discuss how to deal with the Soul Race continent. In the past, when the Falling Star continent was extremely arrogant, the Scarlet Sea continent, Lingyun continent, and other planes had formed an alliance. However, when Jun Changshao killed tens of thousands of experts in a fit of rage, those who should be cowed immediately did so, and those who should pay did so. Humph. At the temporary meeting place of the alliance, Hong Yao sneered and said, "Although that woman is strong, she is too weak compared to Jun Changshao. As long as we join forces, we will definitely be able to deal a heavy blow to her." The difference was too great. They could not instantly kill tens of thousands of people. Palace Master Hong, the vast continent and Shalos continent have agreed to send strong warriors to assist, the leader of Lingyun continent said with a smile. Is that so? Hong Yao was instantly overjoyed. The vast continent and Shalos continent were the first-tier planes in the dimensional battlefield. With their help, dealing with the Soul Race continent would be easy. What did the Nine Heavens continent say? City Lord Imo did not reply. Sigh. Hong Yao shook his head and said, in my opinion, City Lord Imo is afraid of Jun Changshao. He is even afraid of the Soul Race continent. Nine Heavens continent, inside the stronghold. Mo Shangsheng, who was sitting at the head of the table, was carefully reading the information about the Soul Race continent. So this is a race with divine abilities. No wonder Empress Rose is so strong, the elder below said. Mo Shangsheng frowned and said, the Soul Race can reside in the bodies of other living beings to improve themselves. This is a bit unbelievable. The Scarlet Sea continent and Lingyun continent have requested our help to deal with the Soul Race continent. City Lord, do you have a choice? The elder asked. Mo Shangsheng put down the information and said, although there is no one on this continent, I feel that it is not simple. So let the other planes cause trouble. We will continue to remain neutral. The elders fell silent. Not to mention Hong Yao and the other leaders, even they thought that after the city lord was extorted by Jun Changshao, he had become abnormally cautious. He was not as strong as the first tier should be. In the endless universe, dozens of warships were flying at an extremely fast speed. On the leading warship, a white-haired elder sat cross-legged on the bow, holding a compass in his hand to guide the way. He, who had used the time reversal technique, saw the scene of the interstellar navigation monarch being killed and locked onto the coordinates of the perpetrator. So this time, he was heading to the falling star continent. Sect of all times. Just as the dozens of warships were infinitely close, Jun Changshao sat in the main hall and looked up at the rolling dark clouds gathering in the sky. He said, a storm is coming. Is the opponent very strong? Lu Qianqian appeared behind him out of nowhere. Because she had cultivated many times in the frozen heavens, the cold aura was stronger than before. Yes. Jun Changshao nodded. Lu Qianqian said, Qingyang and Zui Ji are ready to die for the sect. What about you? Jun Changshao asked. Lu Qianqian did not answer. She looked up at the rolling dark clouds, and a trace of determination flashed in her cold eyes. Jun Changshao stood up and said, your deaths are due to my negligence, so. He raised his hand, and a vast power erupted, turning into a large hand that grabbed the dark clouds. He said with a cold gaze, this kind of thing is not allowed to happen. Not only did his powerful voice shatter the dark clouds, but it also rippled in the sky above the sect of all times. The disciples who heard this felt their blood boil. Even Yixingchen, who had always been proud and aloof, stood outside the Tower of Trials with a strong fighting spirit in his eyes. This sect. Even if I have to be reborn again, I will defend and protect it. Come on, baby. Jun Changshao snapped his fingers, and the magically modified sound system suddenly sounded like a cat's meow. The disciples immediately started dancing, and the heavy atmosphere in the sect was replaced by joy. Fuck! The system roared. A storm is coming, and you still have the mood to dance with your disciples. Chapter 1162. Li Qingyang, Xiao Ziji, and the others could tell that something big was about to happen from the Patriarch's deployment, so they focused all their attention on cultivation. They also knew that the opponent this time might be very powerful, but as members of the sect of all times, they had to fight to the death no matter what. This was their home, and they couldn't allow outsiders to invade. Old Wu. In the universe, on the interstellar battleship leading the way, the powerful burly man asked, how long will it take to find the murderer of the navigator monarch? 7 or 8 days at the fastest, 1 month at the slowest, the white-haired old man replied. He only confirmed Jun Changshao's appearance from the time reversal technique. If he wanted to find a hiding place in the vast universe, he had to deduce along the way. To be exact, he could only search by following the aura left behind by the murderer. He didn't have a lock on the falling star continent. That guy killed the navigator monarch and took away all the interspatial rings. The remnant scroll must be with him, the white-haired old man said with certainty. Of course. He was also a little surprised. From the mirror image, the murderer didn't seem old, but he could easily cut off the navigator monarch's head. Could it be that an experienced martial artist was pretending to be young? The scene the white-haired old man had deduced was that when Jun Changshao killed the handsome man, the black and white double ghosts attacked. Otherwise, they wouldn't have come with such fanfare. Humph. The burly middle-aged man said coldly, no one can take away something that we, the 5 tyrants of the universe, want. They had been searching for the 7 profound rays remnant scroll for a long time. It wasn't easy to find the navigator monarch, but someone else beat them to it. The white-haired old man didn't deduce where Jun Changshao was in the falling star continent in 7 or 8 days because the aura suddenly stopped after traveling a certain distance. He had to search for a long time before he found it. Why did it stop? Because at that time, Jun Changshao had already changed to an ancient battleship and used high-grade spirit stones to travel faster. So, there was almost no aura left for the white-haired old man to capture. At this rate, it would take at least a month to find the falling star continent. Jun Changshao did not know when the storm would come, but since the epic quest had been given, it would definitely happen. Therefore, he was always on guard every day. Furthermore, he took the opportunity to summon the archaic warship and fly out to find a desolate plain not far from the Starfall continent. The black and white double ghosts could ignore the power of the universe and fight here and there, but Jun Changshao couldn't. Thus, they had to choose a location in advance. It was very important to find a place before a fight. 10 days. 20 days. Time passed slowly. One day, Yi Xingqian walked out of the entrance of the 9 Heavens Mystery Realm. Instantly, a majestic aura erupted from his body. In the past month, he had been focusing on cultivation, and his cultivation had reached the peak of Wu Huang's level. What he had spent hundreds of years to accomplish in his previous life, he had accomplished in just a few years after his rebirth. His speed could be said to be super fast. The Taishan Sutra did not contribute much to Yi Xingqian's rapid cultivation speed. The Sect of all Times' various martial arts facilities were the greatest help, especially the 9 Heavens Mystery Realm that had been set up not long ago. This miraculous martial arts auxiliary tool made him realize that whether he could break through to Martial Emperor or shatter the void depended on it. Ah no. Jun Changshao, who was sitting in the main hall, said, soon, there might be strong enemies coming. I hope you can fight for the sect and stand up for your fellow disciples. Why did he say that? Because in his opinion, Yi Xingqian did not have a strong sense of identity with the sect. He hoped that with the help of this invasion, he could cultivate that kind of unforgettable feeling that came from the bottom of his heart. Yi Xingqian said with a serious expression, I will. I'm very happy that you have a sense of identity with the sect, Jun Changshao said with a smile. Yi Xingqian turned his face away and thought to himself, I don't allow others to touch the Sect of all times because I don't want to lose a cultivation holy land. Please don't misunderstand. Okay, I got it. Damn Tsundere. Yi Xingqian was not the only one who had a breakthrough. Lu Chanshan and He Wudi were also making rapid progress. Li Qingyang, Xiao Ziji, and the others were not to be outdone. They were courageously chasing after them. In this month, the cultivation speed of the Sect of all times core disciples could be described as skyrocketing. Everything is within my expectations. Jun Changshao said proudly. After reading the 9 Heavens Mystery Realms manual, he had already imagined the scene at this moment. After all, it was worth 100,000 contribution points. Whoosh! Whoosh! Suddenly, on the peak where the elders lived, a strong aura of advancement erupted. The disciples were so shocked that they all turned their heads to look. Elder Sun is about to break through to Wu Sheng. Li Qingyang, Xiao Ziji, and the others looked envious. This was the level they were looking forward to the most. Jun Changshao, who was lying in the main hall, said with a smile, "From today onwards, the sect of all times has another Wuxing level elder." However, a few days after Gongsun Haohai broke through to Wusheng, Jiangye, the Ning brothers, and Elder Gu, the four old F4S, also used the Nine Heavens Mystery Realms martial arts facilities to successfully enter the half-step Wusheng. Excluding the newly arrived Black and White Double Devils, as well as the Purple King and the other beasts, the sect of all times already had 2 Wusheng and 4 half-saints. This was very tough. Patriarch Li Qingyang reported, "Of the 2,000 inner disciples, 300 are Wu Huang, and the rest are all martial kings." When Jun Changshao was outside, the sect was not in a static state. For example, the sect's annual sect competition would be held as promised, and the disciples with good results would enter the inner sect. Now, there were 2,000 people in the sect. In fact, according to the standards of other sects, the outer sect disciples who failed to be selected were qualified to enter the inner sect. However, in a competition between a group of geniuses, only geniuses could be selected. It was no exaggeration to say that the Sect of All Times' annual sect competition was more exciting and intense than the highest-level competition on the Starfall continent. It was a bit like Huaxia's table tennis. It might be easy to go out and win the World Championship, but it would be hell to come back and win the National Games. After listening to the report, Jun Changshao ordered, "Let them continue to cultivate. Don't be distracted for even a moment." "Yes." Li Qingyang hurriedly went to make arrangements. Jun Changshao continued to patrol the various halls as usual. However, just as he arrived at the Drizzle Hall, White Rakshasa's voice rang in his ears, "Little brother, there are dozens of interstellar warships rushing over." Dozens of warships? The interstellar sailing king had so many enemies? The handsome man's warship could hold tens of thousands of people. Now that dozens of warships were coming, there must be a lot of people. "Disciples, listen up." Jun Changshao said in a clear voice, "Follow me onto the ancient warship." "Yes." Whoosh! Whoosh! The entire sect of all times suddenly became lively. The sect's upper echelons, led by Old Ding, flew to the warship docked outside Iron Bone Mountain. Li Qingyang, Xiao Ziji, and the other core disciples followed closely behind. In a short time, the ancient warship could hold thousands of people. The camera panned over them one by one. They were all wearing excellent armor and represented the sect of all times' strongest combat power. Whoosh! Jun Changshao flew over last and stood at the bow of the warship. His spiritual senses entered the engine. With a whoosh, the ancient warship flew out of the falling star continent and hovered in the endless dark universe. The disciples who did not follow were all silently praying for the patriarch, elders, and senior brothers, hoping that they could return safely. Because Li Qingyang and the others had followed them when they were searching for the location of the battle, they did not look around. Instead, they were on high alert at all times. "Patriarch." Old Ding pointed into the distance and said, "What is that?" In the seemingly endless darkness, there were dozens of light spots the size of rice grains. They grew bigger and bigger, and the distance between them grew closer and closer. On the first warship, the white-haired old man sitting cross-legged suddenly opened his eyes. His turbid gaze seemed to pierce through the void and locked onto the young man on the warship. He said in a low voice, "This kid is the murderer." Whoosh! Whoosh! In an instant, dozens of warships accelerated and hovered in the distance with a powerful aura. Martial artists of all shapes and sizes appeared on the deck. They looked at Jun Changshao and the sect of all times disciples with ferocious and mocking eyes. There was actually a warship docked in the starry sky of a low-tier plane. It seemed like it was waiting for us. Now that was interesting. Ha ha ha. One of the 5 hegemons stood at the bow of the warship and laughed eerily. "I thought that the one who stole the scroll was a top-tier expert. Turns out it was just trash from a low-tier plane." Ding! One punch sure kill charged at 5%. Damn! It was charged just like that. Jun Changshao was stunned. However, he cupped his fists and said, "The hospitable falling star welcomes you." Chapter 1163. Welcome. Does this guy think we're here to play? Ha ha ha. The martial artists on the dozens of warships roared with laughter. The disdain and contempt in their eyes grew stronger. The white-haired elder was more composed. He asked, "So, you're from the falling star continent?" He had a star map with most of the dimensions marked on it, so he quickly learned the name of the continent below the Archean battlefield. His companion was right. This was indeed a very trashy dimension. Even the desolate plain where the handsome man had died had stronger spatial barriers than this one. The falling star continent in ancient times was actually not too bad, but after it split apart, the situation deteriorated. That's right. Jun Changshao was still smiling. However, Yi Xingchen, who was standing behind him, was filled with killing intent. The warships were already ugly, and now they were laughing without restraint. They were so ugly that one could not bear to look at them directly. If Knight Emperor had his peak cultivation, he would definitely fly over and smash the warships to pieces to prevent his eyes from being wronged. Li Qingyang, Xiao Ziji, and the others frowned. Those martial artists who looked like subordinates were not weak. If they fought with them, it would be very interesting. On the battlefield, Gou Sheng had killed tens of thousands of people and shocked the other dimensions. He could only find martial artists from the spirit origin continent to spar with him. However, he still adhered to the principle of friendship first and learning from each other, so he could not feel anything from the fight. Now that these uninvited guests were all powerful and came with ill intentions, they should be able to use their strength to their heart's content. Under the patriarch's leadership, they had all become warmongers. Moreover, they always remembered the sect's #1 motto to be indifferent to life and death. The white-haired elder said, "You killed the interstellar navigation monarch?" "That's right." "You also took the spatial ring?" "That's right." Jun Changshao answered all the questions. This also made the 5 hegemons certain that the 4th volume of the 7 Mystic Sunglow fragment was on him. Not only that. 1, 2, 3, and 3 were also here. Brothers, if you can get rid of Gou Sheng, not only will the readers be overjoyed, but they will also guarantee that they will immediately reach the peak of their lives. Brat. The gloomy man sneered and said, "You took the initiative to fly out and wait for us. I'm afraid you're worried that the plane will be affected. If that's the case, why don't you hurry up and hand over the scroll? Maybe I'll be happy and spare your dog life." Ding! Charge 10% for 1 punch kill. Another 5 points. As expected, it's the same as what I remember. If the opponent you meet is arrogant enough, you can kill them with 1 punch. Of course. What surprised Jun Changshao was that the other party actually wanted him to hand over the remnant scroll. 7 mysterious sunglow broken scroll. Fuck. He had only bought it for a short period of time, and he hadn't even had the time to cultivate it. He hadn't even distributed it to his disciples, yet the thief had already come knocking on his door. This was way too fast. The system was speechless. Volume 2, The Rose Queen. Volume 3, The Black and White Double Breaks. Now that the host had bought Volume 4, the people who were related to it had come again. How small was the universe for them to meet so easily? The system muttered, "I wonder where the unlucky bastard from Volume 1 is." That unlucky bastard, Volume 1, was currently standing in front of Jun Changshao, looking indifferently at the 5 martial emperors with strength comparable to martial emperors. If I had the cultivation of peak wuxing right now, he thought to himself, I should be able to defeat any one of the 5 of them. People who came down from the upper echelons were just that confident. Friend. Jun Changshao looked at the gloomy man, clasped his fists and said, "Looking at your imposing appearance and extraordinary martial prowess, you must be a big shot in the universe, right?" He had already figured out the pattern, and a plan formed in his mind. Brat. The gloomy man said proudly, "Your strength isn't much, but your eyesight is not bad." That's right. I am one of the 5 hegemons of the universe, who has rampaged across the universe for thousands of years, killing gods and Buddhas. Ding! Charge 20% for one punch kill. As expected. Jun Changshao thought to himself, as long as this guy acts cool, he will charge. After understanding the principle of one punch kill, Go Sheng was secretly delighted, because he could rely on his mouth to make the opponent even more arrogant and crazy, thus quickly reaching the release condition. What was this? Others act cool, but he became stronger. So you are one of the 5 hegemons of the universe, sorry for the disrespect. Jun Changshao clasped his fists and said. Humph, the gloomy man raised his head proudly. Ding! Charge 25% for one punch kill. Charging even with a snort, this guy was really arrogant and despotic. Since you are all here to ask for the remnant scroll, please follow me, Jun Changshao said politely. He needed to bring these uninvited guests out of the falling star continent as soon as possible. After all, if he attacked directly, the continent would definitely not be able to withstand the aftershock. The gloomy man was not brainless, and saw through Jun Changshao's intention, so he said calmly, if you are worried about the continent being destroyed, quickly hand over the remnant scroll and martial arts resources, and we might not make things difficult for you and this trash plane. Ding! Charge 30% for one punch kill. Jun Changshao said seriously, I have placed the remnant scroll in a deserted plain far away. As long as you go there, you will naturally get it. Is that so? A hint of hesitation appeared in the white-haired old man's eyes. When he came, he had thought about it many times. The murderer who could kill the handsome man was extraordinary, and even if he obtained the remnant scroll, he would have to pay a price. He did not expect the other party to be so weak and so cooperative. No! The white-haired old man said telepathically, it might be a trap. Old Wu. The gloomy man said disdainfully, even if a trash from a low-level plane has some tricks up his sleeve, he is still just a pitiful ant in front of me. Ding! Charge 60% for one punch kill. Jun Changshao was dumbfounded when he suddenly heard that the value had increased by 30 points. That guy did not say anything, so why did it increase again? Could it be that when acting cool to the extreme, a casual glance could trigger the condition? Kid! The gloomy man sneered and said, lead the way. However, let me remind you, don't play any tricks. Otherwise, even if you run to the upper realm, you will die. Tisk, the black-white double ghosts in the dark laughed coldly. Not only were there strong barriers to the upper realm, but there were also heavenly Dao laws. That guy said that it was like his own backyard, and that he could enter and leave as he pleased. The gloomy man's act of acting cool made the black-white double ghosts unable to continue watching. Without a doubt, they also increased the charge of one punch kill from 60% to 90%. If all the opponents I meet in the future are so arrogant and despotic, then I will really be invincible. Jun Changshao thought to himself as he controlled the ancient warship to fly toward the desolate plain he had chosen. The 5 hegemons of the cosmos immediately followed for the remnant scroll. Dozens of warships followed behind the ancient warship, and the formation was quite intense. The white-haired old man said, this kid will definitely not hand over the remnant scroll so easily. We must not be careless, lest we fail miserably. The coarse man and the other 2 nodded. The gloomy man said calmly, this guy should be going to a desolate plain far away. When he reaches there, you don't have to do anything. Leave it to me. Whoosh, the ancient warship cut through the cosmos. After a while, it penetrated the space barrier and merged with the desolate plain. There were no living beings here, and it was all barren land. It was very suitable for battle. It would be fine even if the entire continent was destroyed. Whoosh! 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 Old Ding, the Purple King, Li Qingyang, and the others jumped off the warship. They got into formation and started to warm up before the battle. Whoosh! Whoosh! Dozens of warships also flew in. Whoosh! Whoosh! However, before the warship could come to a stable stop, the gloomy man unleashed his martial emperor-level cultivation and gathered his powerful energy to suppress the warship. The range of his aura was very wide. It was obvious that he was not only going to capture Jun Changshao but also kill all the disciples of the sect of all times. This was a ruthless person. This is a little troublesome. The black-white double ghosts in the dark were about to rush out. No need. However, just as they moved, they heard Jun Changshao's voice. Leave it to me. Leave it to him. The black-white double ghosts were a little confused. If this sworn brother of theirs had turned into a stone statue, they would not be worried at all. However, he had not used the stone statue race's special ability. How could he face a martial emperor? Whoosh! 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 Violent airwaves pressed down from the sky. The space of the barren land could not withstand it and started to crack. Li Qingyang, Xiao Ziji, and the others stood behind Jun Changshao. They felt the suffocating aura. Their faces gradually turned hideous, and beads of sweat appeared on their foreheads. A martial emperor was so terrifying. It was strange. Faced with such an unsolvable situation, they were only suppressed by the aura because the patriarch was standing beside them. They did not feel any fear. Brat! How dare you snatch something that the 5 hegemons of Starry Sky want? Today, you will compensate with the lives of your subordinates. The gloomy man's eyes flashed with strong murderous intent as he descended from the sky. He smiled disdainfully as if all the living beings below were ants in his eyes. Compensate with the lives of my disciples? Jun Changshao was completely enraged when he thought of Shir's mission. Stomp! He took a step forward and said angrily, "How dare you hurt my disciples? I will send you to heaven first." Boom! There were no fancy moves or superfluous battle descriptions. An explosive force instantly rippled from the barren land, and then dust and huge ripples filled the sky. Caw caw caw! Wherever the energy wave passed, space and ground quickly cracked. Swish! Bam 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 bam! The gloomy man flew out of the dust like a cannonball and directly passed through his own battleships. The entire sky instantly exploded, and the scorching flames dyed the originally dark environment red. The black and white Rakshas's eyes were wide open as if they were about to pop out of their sockets. On the battleship at the front of the team that was not affected, the white-haired old man, the burly middle-aged man, and the others were also stunned. The 6 of them could clearly see what had just happened. Therefore, the shock brought by that scene was insanely strong. Whoosh! 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 The wind whistled, and the dust scattered. The camera looked down from above. With Jun Changshao as the center, there was a crater that was at least 50 kilometers deep. As for Old Ding, Li Qingyang, and the others, they staggered and struggled to stand. Question marks appeared on their faces. Who am I? Where am I? What am I doing? These 3 sentences could describe the feelings of everyone in the sect of all times at this moment. Because the scene just now was too sudden, so sudden that they did not see anything. Wait! Why are there strands of hair floating down? Everyone gradually calmed down and hurriedly looked up. They saw Jun Changshao standing on one leg and the other leg raised high in a bombardment position. Tufts of black hair were blown away by the wind until it was blown clean, revealing a shiny head. Patriarch, he, bald. 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 The system's roar echoed in Jun Changshao's ears. You could have killed him with one punch. Why did you use your leg? Chapter 1164. The gloomy man floated in the dark sky. His mouth was open, and his expression was ferocious. A clear footprint could be seen on his chest. From this person's point of view, one could see the desolate plain used for battle. He could even see a giant hole in the spatial barrier that separated the plain from the outside world. The gloomy man had used his body to break through the barrier. He was already dead, and the fatal wound was the footprint on his chest. He died just like that. The black-white twin ghosts retracted their spiritual senses, their eyes filled with shock. As top-notch experts in the mortal world, the two of them clearly saw Jun Changshao kick the gloomy man away when he tried to press down on him. That kick had been clean and efficient, and it hadn't required too much resources. But the more it was like that, the more terrifying its power was. It had even directly pierced through the spatial barrier of a plane. The spatial barrier of a plane was the kind that space-time worms could gnaw on. It was the final line of defense that connected the plane to the universe. Under normal circumstances, powerful cultivators could shake space when fighting on the continent, but that was only at the ordinary level. If one wanted to break through the spatial barrier of a plane, they had to have the ability to shatter the void. Jun Changshao had kicked the gloomy man out of the universe and even killed him with a single kick. This meant that he had already reached this level. That was why the black-white twin ghosts were so shocked. The patriarch hadn't used any mystical abilities, and he hadn't turned into a stone statue. How could a single kick be so ferocious? Or could it be that his cultivation had already reached the level of a martial emperor, or even higher? Had he been pretending to be weak all this time? Trump card. Senior Tonggu gave him a trump card. The black-white twin ghosts quickly came to a conclusion. Jun Changshao couldn't possibly have such a terrifying cultivation. His sudden eruption of power was definitely related to Senior Tonggu. After all, he was a personal disciple. He had even given him the ancient warship. How could he lack a life-saving trump card at a critical moment? That's it. The black-white twin ghosts confirmed their thoughts. At the same time, they also understood why the patriarch had been so calm from the start. It turned out that he had a powerful trump card. Logically speaking, the three of them definitely couldn't afford to lose. However, because Jun Changshao's kick had been too fast and caused too much of a commotion, they hadn't been able to catch it with their current cultivation. They could only stare blankly at the giant hole in the sky. What's going on? Fifth brother. The eyes of the other four of the 5 tyrants of starry sky were suffused with monstrous anger, but it was also mixed with an especially strong fear. The gloomy man's strength was not below theirs, but he was actually kicked to death. Just how terrifying was this young man's strength? Sigh. Jun Changshao put down his foot and said indifferently, "You really can't take a kick." The corners of the black-white double devil's mouths twitched violently. "My little brother, with that simple kick of yours just now, if it were us brothers, we would have died on the spot as well." However, the black and white double breaks took a long time to react. It took them quite a while before they roared inwardly, "Why are you bald?" after kicking him. At this point, Jun Changshao felt like crying. After the one-punch kill had reached 100%, he felt an extremely explosive power gathering in his body. He could even control it at will. Thus, he had a flash of inspiration. Why not use his feet to avoid the side effects? That was a good idea. Reality was cruel. The strength of one punch kill didn't lie in the punch, but in the word kill. Regardless of whether it was punches, kicks, fingers, or buttocks, as long as the user met the sure kill requirement, the user's hair would inevitably fall off. Unsealing unstoppable blade and entering a weakened state, activating one punch kill would instantly cause hair to fall off. All of these met the conditions of an equivalent exchange. It's not a big problem. The system comforted him. The host has a hair growth agent. His hair will reach his waist by the next day. Jun Changshao broke down. Why do I feel that these words are a bit unreliable coming from the mouth of a toxic healer like you? Pfft. Suddenly, laughter came from behind him. Jun Changshao, with his shiny head, hurriedly turned around and saw Su Xiaoma trying hard to hold back his laughter with one hand. His face was red from holding back his laughter. Xiao Ziji and Li Fei lowered their heads. The two of them really didn't dare to look at the patriarch. They were afraid that they wouldn't be able to control their emotions and laugh out loud. Pfft. It would have been better if Jun Changshao hadn't turned around. Now that he did, Su Xiaoma, who had undergone strict training, couldn't help but laugh out loud again. In the end, no matter how funny it was, He wouldn't laugh unless he couldn't help but burst out laughing. Laughter was contagious. Li Fei, who was still trying to hold back his laughter, heard Su Xiaoma laughing. He couldn't help but squat on the ground and laugh wildly with one hand covering his face. The most exaggerated one was Li Tian, who was already lying on the ground laughing. To be honest, the shiny head of the patriarch was simply too funny. Bang! 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 3 streaks of fist light flashed past. Su Xiaoma, Li Fei, and Li Tian stood neatly with big bumps on their heads. Their expressions were extremely serious. Sigh. Jun Changshao shook his head. Coincidentally, he saw Li Qingyang from the corner of his eyes. He found that not only was he standing upright but his expression didn't change. He immediately felt gratified. My second disciple is still the most reliable. Second senior brother. Su Xiaoma asked for advice. How did you do it? Li Qingyang said, sealing my vision. So that's how it is. Why didn't I think of it? At this time, except for the truly reliable Lu Qianqian and Yi Xingqian, Xiao Ziji, He Wudi, and the others all sealed their vision. Because the bald head of the patriarch was really a test of their ability to hold back their laughter. Everyone. Jun Changshao turned around, and a ray of light flashed in his head. He said, "Do you still want my remnant book?" His voice was flat, and there was no strong aura. It was as if he was an ordinary person. The more he was like this, the more the 4 tyrants felt the pressure. After all, the scene of the cold man being kicked to death was still vivid in their minds, and it was still echoing in their sea of consciousness. This was deterrence, this was deterrence. The black and white double breaks, who were originally quite worried, were now safely hiding in the dark. With the explosive kick of the patriarch just now, not to mention dealing with the other 4 powerhouses, it would be easy to destroy everyone on the warship. Elder Wu. The coarse middle-aged man transmitted his voice. What do we do? He really wanted to get the 7 profound Sunglow remnant book, but the young man opposite him killed his companion with one kick. It was too terrifying, and he had to follow his heart. The white-haired old man frowned. At this time, he finally understood why the Starry Sky Navigation Monarch was killed with one strike. This person is strong. We can't fight him head-on. Retreat? If we can't do it openly, we'll do it secretly. After a short discussion, the 4 of them reached a consensus to escape as soon as possible. It was really difficult for them to give up on the remnant book. After all, they had been searching for a long time. If they couldn't do it openly, they could only do it secretly. Patriarch. White Rakshasa transmitted her voice. These people are thinking of retreating. Retreating? Jun Changshao's lips curled into a smile. He immediately took out the 1st, 2nd, 3rd, and 4th copies of the remnant book. He smiled and said, I don't only have remnant book 4. I also have remnant books 1, 2, 3, and 3. The 4 tyrants, who were about to retreat, saw this and their eyes burned. It's the same as recorded. The white-haired old man immediately judged from the shape of the remnant books that these were the 7 mysterious light-break remnant books that they had been searching for. And there were 4 of them at once. They couldn't retreat. They had to get them. A strong sense of greed took over their mind, forcing the 4 tyrants to give up their plan to escape. They stared at the 4 remnant books. Everyone. Jun Changshao said loudly, if your subordinates can defeat the disciples behind me, these 4 remnant books will be given to you with both hands. The 4 tyrants looked at each other. They didn't know what the other party was up to. There wasn't anything special. They just wanted to use this opportunity to provide their disciples with more powerful combat opportunities. The white-haired old man fell into deep thought, wondering if the other party had any other tricks. But the burly middle-aged man standing next to him couldn't stand it anymore. He said coldly, if that's the case, then we'll accept it. Shwa! He waved his hand. Whoosh! 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 thousands of disciples jumped out of the warships under his control. Their strength was comparable to the level of King Wu, Wu Huang, and even Wu Sheng. Snap! Jun Changshao snapped his fingers and said, "Babies, start your performance." Whoosh, whoosh, whoosh. Behind him, Li Qingyang, Xiao Ziji, and the others flew over. They stood dozens of meters away from the thousands of warriors in various postures. The aura that emerged seemed to turn into wolf skins on their bodies, and their eyes gradually became sharp. "Ah!" The Purple King shouted angrily. "Ah, ah, ah!" However, no matter how his blue veins bulged and how his aura erupted, the clothes that Jun Changshao gave him not long ago seemed to stick to his skin. They couldn't burst his skin at all. Chapter 1165. After Yuan Gongzi became the patriarch, the number of times the Purple King's clothes exploded had decreased. After all, it was directly related to the beast core. However, this time, he had to be extra serious when facing a martial artist from the starry sky. Therefore, he stood in front of the disciples and unleashed a powerful aura. However, the powerful demonic aura came out, but the clothes on his body shrank tighter and tighter, as if they were stuck to his skin and could not burst. "Ah! Ah! Ah!" The Purple King tried a few more times. His aura of fighting by shouting reached its peak. His face was red and he was about to fart, but his clothes still did not explode. They even turned into tights. It had to be said. Indestructible clothes were really a product of conscience. More importantly, the style was very novel and did not have the old-fashioned feeling. The four tyrants of Starry Sky, at this time, if they were not in a serious state of battle, they might have collectively held their stomachs and laughed. Because below, stop howling. Jun Changshao said telepathically, "The clothes I gave you are the same style as your underwear." The Purple King suddenly broke down. For him, who would only feel comfortable when he was naked, this was equivalent to losing his soul. "Go!" At this time, the burly middle-aged man did not care what the purple-haired sand eagle was doing. He immediately ordered his subordinates to attack. Huff, huff, huff. In an instant, 6 powerhouses comparable to martial saints shot over. All kinds of energy surged toward the purple craggy monster king like a tidal wave. The purple craggy monster king gave up on tearing off his clothes. His eyes instantly turned cold. Boom! Boom! All kinds of attacking energies suddenly exploded. The purple craggy beast king flew out from the raging winds and punched the martial saint closest to him in the face with a fist that seemed to have been tempered thousands of times. Bang, crack, crack, crack. The space collapsed and the cold wind was like a knife. After the Purple King sent Wuxing flying, he actually took off one of his sleeves. When he sent another opponent flying, he also took off his left sleeve. Indestructible clothes could be worn and taken off. Therefore, he wanted to take them off as he fought. Thus, he released himself and had an absolute soul. There's no cure. Jun Changshao shook his head. Boom! Boom! On the other side, Old Ding, Gongsun Haohai, Jiangye, and the other upper echelons of the sect had already started fighting with the stronger enemies, Wu Sheng and the semi-sage. All kinds of energy lights flickered in the sky, indicating that the chaotic battle would be extremely intense. As expected. This kind of battle where there were many people and all of them had decent strength was absolutely thrilling and pleasing to the eye. However, the space was also suffering because the more exciting the battle was, the more it would shatter. Boom! Purple craggy monster monarch punched again. At this moment, the clothes on his body had already fallen to the ground, leaving only his red underwear on his body. This was Jun Changshao's bottom line. The subordinates of the 4 hegemons of Starry Sky were dumbfounded. Not only had they seen many fights, but they had also experienced many of them. However, it was definitely the first time they had seen someone take off their clothes in the middle of a fight. Talent. What a fucking genius. Boom. After taking off his clothes, the Purple King, who seemed to be infused with his soul, became more powerful. He threw a punch at Wu Sheng's face and sent him flying a few hundred feet away. He fell to the ground and spat out blood. His meridians were damaged. In the past, Hall Master Z could fight against Wu Sheng alone, but he couldn't cause too much damage. Now that he had experienced the Nine-Heaven Mystery Realm, it was easy for him to severely injure Wu Sheng in a chaotic battle. Whoosh, whoosh. At this moment, an enemy powerhouse who was comparable to Wu Sheng at the Great Perfection stage unleashed a majestic aura. It pressed down like a tsunami. The Purple King raised his eyebrows. He put on the pink gloves and destroyed the enemy's aura. He then started the most intense battle in the sky. It was very difficult to fight against the Heaven-class battlefield spirits in the dimensional battlefield. Now, it was easy for him. Hall Master Z wasn't the only one whose strength had skyrocketed. Ding Xingwang was also fighting against a few powerhouses who were comparable to Wu Sheng. It would have been impossible in the past. Jiangya, Old Go, and the other old F4 members weren't as fierce, but they were half-saints. They could still suppress those at the same level as them. They were the subordinates of the 5 hegemons of the universe. They had been fighting in the universe all year round. If it were a martial artist at the same level in the Falling Star continent, they would be defeated in a few dozen moves. Buzz, buzz, buzz. Boom. 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 Li Qingyang held the heavenly slaughter thunder mark in the air. He infused the thunder element into the sword and slashed down with a light that could tear space apart. Poochie! Poochie! The thunder element sword light brought up a mist of blood wherever it passed. During this period of cultivation in the Thunder Heaven, not only did his level increase, but he also became more familiar with the use of the thunder element. So, he was able to severely injure several Wu Huang with one slash. In stark contrast, Yi Xingchen summoned the Li Shang offering sacrifice to the heavens and threw it at the dozens of martial artists who were attacking him. With a flash of light, the same number of martial artists appeared. Swoosh! 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 The wine jars, which looked like flying guillotines, instantly landed on the heads of the 4 hegemons of the universe. Then, with the sound of something being cut apart, they turned into headless corpses on the spot. When it came to killing, Yi Xingchen was always more decisive than Li Qingyang. Whoosh, whoosh. Whoosh, whoosh, whoosh. All of a sudden, dozens of forces from 2 different directions pressed down on him. Yi Xingchen stood in the air and didn't move. Because when the forces came, Xiao Ziji flew over to face him. The cloud boat hero on his back absorbed all the forces. The two went out to train together all year round, so they had a great tacit understanding. You defend, I'll attack. Okay. Swoosh. 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 Yi Xingchen went around from the side, and the dozens of wine jars that were suspended in the air instantly combined together and were thrown towards the enemy crowd that was further away. The word attack that was printed on the Lingyan pavilion faintly appeared on the back of his hand. Kill! Kill! The 4 hegemons of the universe didn't cower because of their companion's tragic death. They rushed over at a faster speed and gathered more power. However, they couldn't stop Yi Xingchen. Because Xiao Zui activated the cloud boat hero to form an absolute defense in the path. As the core disciples of the sect of all times who focused on offense and defense, once the 2 of them worked together, they would definitely be successful in both offense and defense. Swoosh! 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 The Li Shang ritual split up again and covered the heads of the 4 hegemons of the universe. During this time, the forces coming from all directions were all blocked by the cloud boat hero's defensive barrier. Trash! Yi Xingchen said coldly, die. Poochie! Poochie! The wine jars on the enemies' heads flashed. Heads were instantly cut off, and corpses fell to the ground. Then, Yi Xingchen and Xiao Ziji moved among the enemies with their strongest attacks and strongest defenses. They were like 2 death gods from hell, crazily harvesting lives. The Yi Xiao duo's combat power was off the charts. Under the two's joint efforts, a half-step whooshing expert was also killed. However, in another battle area, the Su Fei duo also attracted attention. Swoosh! Swoosh! Su Xiaoma activated the body of Gale and moved among the enemies as fast as a meteor. Even the half-step whooshing couldn't hit him. Ah, I'm such a failure. My parents made the biggest mistake by giving birth to me. Li Fei put 2 fingers on his temple. The power of depression spread like a ghost. Dozens of Wu Huang-level martial artists knelt on the ground and howled. This ability to control thoughts and generate negative emotions wasn't invincible. Many high-level martial artists with strong minds weren't affected. Get lost! Bang! 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 Su Xiaoma, who was moving among the enemies, used Li Fei's power of depression to control his legs frequently. Because the speed was too fast, when he rushed out, he wiped his nose and laughed. Dozens of martial artists seemed to be released from the slow motion and then flew out in all kinds of ways. The Su Fei duo's attack was a bit fancy. He Wudi, who rushed into the crowd, was really tough. Wherever his feet and fists passed, the enemy martial artists flew out. One punch was enough to kill a monster. Crack! 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 Suddenly, the cold air spread, and bits of ice appeared. The originally hot environment gradually became cold, as if goose-feather-heavy snow would fall at any time. Not good. My body is slowed down. Ice martial arts, there is an ice martial arts. Hundreds of subordinates of the 4 tyrants of the starry sky were trapped in the cold area, and all aspects were greatly slowed. Even the martial kings were covered with ice and could become ice sculptures at any time. Lu Qianxian, who seemed to be otherworldly, stood sideways. Her black hair fluttered in the cold air, revealing an impeccable face. She gently raised her right hand, and an ice pattern of several feet appeared under her feet. The extremely cold air whistled and burst out. Fire, fire, fire! An enemy martial artist roared. Whoosh! 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 In an instant, dozens of martial artists who were not covered by the ice burst out their attributes, forming a sky full of momentum toward Lu Qianxian. However, just as they were about to close in, Little Long Long, who was in its second form, stepped forward and immediately opened its mouth, swallowing all the dozens of flames into its stomach. The enemy martial artists were shocked. This kind of released fire attribute, even if one touched it, they would be burned. How could it be eaten directly? Disgusting. Little Long Long frowned and said, I'll return it to you. Ta! This guy assumed the posture of a calabash brother, opened its mouth and spewed out rolling flames. Not good. Retreat, retreat, retreat. The wave-like flames ruthlessly rushed over, not giving them a chance to escape at all. Those who were swallowed could only be burned into nothingness. The absorbed flames did not cause any harm to Little Long Long, but after brewing in its stomach, the fire and firepower were instantly strengthened. Jun Changshao shook his head and said, playing with fire in front of my contract beast is like playing with a knife in front of Guan Yu. Swish! Swish! Long Xiang, Song Xianzhou, and the others took advantage of senior sisters slowing down to charge in. After a burst of sword and spear light, the hundreds of enemy martial artists who were bound all fell to the ground. The disciples of the sect of all times who wore the skin of wolves were full of the nature of wolves. Therefore, after a short fight, the thousands of subordinates sent by the burly middle-aged man were mostly dead. 4. Jun Changshao said, this amount of manpower is not enough for my disciple to warm up. If you want to get the first, second, third, and fourth scroll fragments, it's best to send all of you. He had a few thousand people on his side, and the other side had sent a few thousand as well. Were they looking down on his disciples' ability to fight with fewer people? To be honest. In a situation where the number of people and cultivation levels were about the same, even if they had a slight advantage, going head-on with the sect of all times would only result in them being beaten up. The white-haired old man and the others frowned. Go! The burly middle-aged man roared. His thousands of subordinates were almost all dead. If the three of them did nothing, it would be unbearable. The seemingly shrewd white-haired old man pondered for a moment, then waved his hand and said, "Everyone, go together." Swish! Swish! On the battleships behind him, 5,000 subordinates flew out. When the other two tyrants saw that old Wu had sent out troops, they also hurriedly signaled their subordinates to move out. Therefore, after Li Qingyang and the others had basically wiped out the burly man's subordinates, they still had to face nearly 20,000 martial artists. 2,000 against 20,000. Jun Changshao smiled and said, "This number is a little more stressful." The disciples of the sect of all times who had just experienced a battle saw that the other party had sent out so many people. Their eyes flashed with battle intent, and the blood in their bodies burned madly. On the interdimensional battleships, they often sparred with the martial artists from the Lingyuan continent. They could not go all out. Now that they were facing these uninvited guests, every move was very satisfying. Fight! 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 Life and death, the cycle of reincarnation never ends. Jun Changshao waved his hand and said, "We live, they die. Kill! Kill! Whoosh whoosh! Whoosh whoosh whoosh!" The disciples of the sect of all times surged with an unyielding aura and charged forward. The sky was filled with crimson sky raging flame slash and 7 mystic sunglow slash. It seemed to have pierced through the void, outlining the most magnificent scene. "The three of you." Although the white-haired elder stared at the battlefield without blinking, he privately transmitted his voice, "Let's find a chance to attack and snatch the 4 remnant manuals." Okay. The 3 tyrants agreed. The white-haired elder reminded that kid's strength is unfathomable. "Remember, we're mainly after the remnant manuals. Once we get them, we'll leave immediately. Don't fight him head-on." He was really a little afraid of Jun Changshao, but he did not want to leave just like that. He could only gamble and snatch the 4 remnant manuals. Boom! Boom! The battle between the disciples of the sect of all times and the subordinates of the 4 tyrants became more and more intense. Due to the great disparity in numbers, the disciples of the sect of all times seemed to be at a disadvantage. "Push over. Don't give them a chance to catch their breath," one of the enemy experts yelled. Whoosh! 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 Thousands of martial artists pressed over from a low-altitude position, like a raging storm. However, as they fought, they collapsed. This was because after paying a huge price, they were about to kill a disciple of the sect of all times. In the end, the other party ate a pill and became lively again. At this moment, the effect of the healing pill was fully displayed. Although it was difficult for the disciples of the sect of all times, who did not have the advantage in numbers, to gain an absolute advantage, each of them had a pill. As long as they were not killed instantly, it was equivalent to having 2 lives. 2,000 against 20,000 was difficult. 4,000 against 20,000. Moreover, the disciples of the sect of all times were fully equipped with excellent equipment. Even if the subordinates of the 4 tyrants of Starry Sky could severely injure them, the price would be the sacrifice of many of their companions or the exhaustion of their own energy. Then, they would have to face them in their peak condition. The 5 of them focused on a tank that was tanky and had high damage output. They spent a lot of time and used up all their skills and mana. In the end, the other party revived and got back up. Their mentality was going to explode immediately. Cutting a crispy double C. Sorry, but any disciple of the sect of all times could be CC, anyone could be CC. What was despair? Seeing that you were about to be killed, eating a pill and continuing to fight with you in peak condition was the greatest despair. At this moment, the disciples of the sect of all times were not the strongest. If they were given a few more years to develop, they would really be a full level 6-piece set. Before you could throw out your Q, E, 1, and 2 skills, the other party would have already thrown out their R and 3 ultimate skills. What E Flash, 2 Flash, R Flash, Big Flash, Healing, Purification, and Scamper, they would all be sent to their deaths. The 4 tyrants of Starry Sky were dumbfounded. This group of uniformed disciples not only had good equipment and strong strength, but they also had pills that could heal injuries quickly. This was too terrifying. Here's our chance. At this moment, the white-haired old man's eyes were sharp as he said, "Attack." This opportunity came when he saw the disciples fighting bravely. Jun Changxiao's lips curled up into a smile. It was obvious that he was focusing all his energy on watching the battle. It was now or never. Whoosh! 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 In an instant, the 4 hegemons of Starry Sky pierced through space and rushed toward the 4 scrolls suspended in front of Jun Changxiao at the fastest speed. The majestic power hidden in the deeper layers of space had already gathered into a big hand. According to the white-haired old man's strategy, 2 of them were in charge of pretending to attack Jun Changxiao so that he would not focus on the scrolls. The other 2 were in charge of snatching the scrolls. Because it was a sudden attack and the terrifying and domineering power was hidden in the deeper layers of space, it did not cause any earth-shaking movements. Whoosh! Whoosh! The 4 of them quickly approached, determined to get the scrolls. Jun Changxiao's eyes were still locked on the battle area. He was completely unaware that the 4 hegemons of Starry Sky had already rushed over. There's hope. The white-haired old man was overjoyed. In the next second, the smile on his face froze. This was because in the depths of the void, 2 even more powerful forces suddenly surged out, and then with an unstoppable force, they broke through it. This change was too sudden. The 4 of them had already rushed to the scrolls, so they did not care about the fact that their secret attack was destroyed. They all reached out to grab the scrolls. There were exactly 4 scrolls, and the 4 of them each targeted one. But, just as they were infinitely close to the scrolls, a black light suddenly flashed in front of them and gradually condensed into a physical body. Not good. Boom, 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 boom. A deafening explosion sounded like thunder, instantly suppressing the sound of the battle between the disciples of the Sect of all times and their 20,000 subordinates. It also made them subconsciously stop and look in the direction of the sound. Jun Changxiao, with his shiny head, stood with his hands behind his back. He said in a martial arts movie accent, sneaking around, "What kind of hero are you?" The 4 hegemons of Starry Sky had ugly expressions. At this time, their eyes were not locked on Jun Changxiao, but locked on to the 2 middle-aged men in black and white who suddenly blocked in front of them. The most intolerable thing was that their outstretched hands were still grabbed by the other party, and they could not break free at all. The 4 of you. The black and white double breaks tilted their heads and smiled. Next, it's up to us to entertain you. Ta! The 2 of them took a step forward in unison and directly brought the 2 tyrants out of the desolate plain and into the endless darkness of space. Heads of the 4 families. Seeing their boss being carried away like a chick, the subordinates were all dumbfounded. Boom! Boom! Suddenly, there was an explosion in the sky, and waves of energy from outside the universe seeped in, causing the entire continent to tremble violently. Whoosh! After a while, the burly middle-aged man tore through the spatial barrier and fell to the ground like a cannonball. Not only did he create a very wide crater, but he also caused a sizable piece of land to split from the main body. Li Qingyang, Xiao Ziji, and the others were stunned. Jun Changxiao looked calm. When he used the sure-kill punch, if he kicked down from above, not only would the cold man die a terrible death, but the desolate continent would also be blown apart. Whoosh! At this time, another stream of light fell. Boom! After coming into close contact with the ground, a cracked piece of land separated from the main body again. The one who was knocked down was another tyrant. The 2 brothers' strength was about the same as the galactic navigation monarch. The latter was being abused like a rubber ball by the black and white double breaks, so there was no need to talk about them. Whoosh! Whoosh! The white-haired elder and the other tyrant also fell from the universe and dealt a heavy blow to the desolate continent again. Whoosh! Suddenly, the gloomy man, who had been cold for a long time, was also thrown down by the black Rakshasa. When the dust settled, everything returned to normal. The 5 brothers were all neatly lying in the pit. Head, seeing their boss covered in injuries and foaming at the mouth, the subordinates' eyes were filled with shock. Elder Zhen. Jun Changshao asked, is the array set up? Kakik. Zhen Dejuan stood in the distance, covered his face, and laughed strangely. These people and their warships are all trapped inside. We can kill to our heart's content. Buzz! Buzz! Just as he finished speaking, array boundaries appeared one after another. There was a defensive array, an isolation array, and even a modified thunder array. They were linked together like an upside-down golden bowl, covering all the subordinates of the galactic 4 tyrants. Jun Changshao sat on a chair prepared in advance and leaned back. He said coldly, kill them all. Don't leave a single one alive. Yes. Chapter 1166. The black and white double ghosts from the upper realm who had their cultivation suppressed fought against 2 each. Soon, the 4 tyrants of Starry Sky were beaten to a pulp. These were 2 bugs. Unless they were suppressed with absolute numbers, it would be very difficult for the martial artists from the mortal realm to finish them off. However, these 2 powerful beings who had just snuck into the lower realm were beaten up by the darkened Jun Changshao because they wanted to watch the show. That was really unlucky. One of the 5 tyrants of Starry Sky was dead and 4 were injured. They were lying neatly on the ground. Their morale was definitely affected. Under normal circumstances, they would definitely scatter when the tree falls. However, Jun Changshao did not give them the chance to do so. He had already ordered Zhen Dejuan to set up a formation in the abandoned realm. The process was a little difficult. This was because the disciples' battle would greatly affect the stability of the realm. Zhen Dejuan was also under great pressure. He was frantically burning his brain cells to piece together a giant formation to seal off all his subordinates who did not manage to escape in time. The battle intent in Li Qingyang and the others' eyes became even stronger. Fighting with enemies from other stars allowed them to gain experience from all sides every second. It was a great opportunity to train. They could not miss it. They had to fight with all their might. Therefore, an even more tragic battle took place in the formation. The subordinates of the 4 tyrants of Starry Sky who had no way out could only brace themselves and fight in order to survive. Although there were many of them were only martial kings. When faced with the powerful disciples of the Sect of all times, they could only give them a box and wave their hands before they died. In terms of high-level combat power, for example, Wu Sheng was at the peak or great perfection level. They had a lot of manpower. The Purple King alone could not handle them. It was fine. There was also Jun Changshao. Although this guy was watching the show, he was always paying attention to the situation. If there was an extremely unfavorable situation for the disciples, he would be the first to intervene and even kill them. The black and white double ghosts also stood outside the formation, constantly paying attention to the battle inside. They remembered the patriarch's previous instructions to not let any of the disciples die. To put it simply, the disciples of the Sect of all times were fighting fiercely inside. There were 3 top powerhouses outside protecting them. This kind of combat experience was simply too blissful. The overall aspect is still a little weak. After observing the battle for a while, Jun Changshao found that other than the core disciples, many of the inner disciples were gradually losing their strength. Moreover, although the strength of the upper echelons was not bad, they were still too few in number. If they were to fight with the other planes in the slaughtering Azura field, the result would definitely not be optimistic. In terms of the development of the Sect, it was already very terrifying for it to grow to such an extent in just a few years. The road has to be taken one step at a time. The system said, "Host, don't be too impatient." Jun Changshao naturally understood this principle. It was mainly because of his own strength and the opponents he encountered were even stronger, making it difficult for him to be content with the status quo. In the past, he had only come into contact with low-level experts. He had thought that creating a 1,000-man martial king army was already very terrifying. It was only when they encountered even more powerful martial emperors and cultivators from other planes that they realized that the sect of all times was just a speck of dust in the vast universe. The host has changed. The system said, "You've become more ambitious." In the past, Jun Changshao only wanted to complete the main mission as soon as possible and get rid of the soul bomb. Then, he would live a carefree life in the mountains and rivers. Now that he thought that the sect was just a speck of dust in the universe, it meant that he was not willing to be satisfied with the status quo and wanted to become stronger. Jun Changshao said, "I'm not ambitious, I just don't want to be bullied by others." "Isn't it always you who bullies others?" the system retorted. Jun Changshao said righteously, "If they didn't provoke me, would I bully them?" The system was silent. 4 hours later, the battle inside the formation stopped. The subordinates of the 4 tyrants of Starry Sky were all turned into boxes and scattered on the ground. Because Jun Changshao and the twin ghosts of Black and White secretly protected them, the sect of all time's disciples did not die. Of course. The price was not small. Li Qingyang, Xiao Ziji, and the others' blood-stained azure sun armor had long been shattered. Although this kind of armor from the merchant shop could provide decent defense against stronger opponents, it would not be able to hold on for long. Su Xiaoma and Li Fei, the 2 disciples who were known for their speed and leg strength, were paralyzed on the ground. Their legs were trembling. The inner disciples were either exhausted or covered in wounds. If not for Jun Changshao and the other 2 protecting them outside and resolving life-threatening situations when necessary, even if they could annihilate the 4 hegemons of Starry Sky, they would have suffered heavy casualties. This battle had brought them great benefits, and they also realized that they were lacking in certain areas. "Loot the bags," Jun Changshao ordered. Li Qingyang, Xiao Ziji, and the others who could still move began to skillfully collect the spatial rings. Patriarch Bai Luocha said, "What should we do with these 4? Jun Changshao looked at the heavily injured 4 hegemons of Starry Sky, and said indifferently, "Seal their cultivation and bring them back to the sect." At first, he wanted to kill them directly, but after all, they were 4 martial emperor-level rankers, so he brought them back to be Zhao Daoda's cellmates. They might come in handy in the future. Moreover, Jun Changshao was very curious. How did they find the falling star continent? Or was it that they were sure that he was the murderer of the handsome man from the beginning? Shwa! Shwa! White Rakshasa and Black Rakshasa used a move similar to the sunflower acupoint technique, sealing several important meridians in the 4 hegemons of Starry Sky, causing them, who were already weak, to suddenly turn into mud. Jun Changshao was not idle either. While the disciples were cleaning up the battlefield, nearly 20 space warships were kept in the spatial ring. This thing could travel through the universe, and could be used as a means of transportation for disciples in the future. The system sighed. In Chapter 118, the host once said that the goal is to conquer the Sea of Stars. Now it seems that we are infinitely close. Huff huff. The scorching flames burned, and the corpses turned into nothingness. Swish. The ancient warship carried the sect of all times up and down, and quickly merged into the endless universe. The desolate space was broken, and the ground was densely packed with deep pits and cracks. None of them meant that a fierce battle had occurred here. Ding! Epic level mission completed, beginning settlement. Ding! The host has successfully defeated the Starry Sky 5 hegemons, the enemies of the Starry Sky Navigation King. The epic level mission has been completed, and the completion rate is 100%. The host has received 50,000 contribution points. Ding! Sect contribution points, 1-200-0070000. Ding! The sect contribution points have overflowed. The completion rate is only 100%? Jun Changshao frowned in dissatisfaction. As usual, because there were 2 epic level missions, even if one was completed, it would only give contribution points and no rewards. When the disciples were fighting with the enemy, I always protected them and did not let a single disciple die. The completion rate should be very high. However, what made Jun Changshao very depressed was that Shirshi's mission was completed, but Shirshi's mission was still not completed. Strange. Why is there no movement? Could it be? His eyes turned cold. The handsome man still has enemies who would come and hurt his family. No, no. Jun Changshao denied himself. If that was the case, Shirshi would not have completed the settlement. The system said, we might have misunderstood. The family might not be the disciples. Then who could it be? Jun Changshao asked. The system was silent for a while. If you want to know who it is, you have to analyze it carefully from the word family. Jun Changshao said, the Han dynasty records that a person has 6 relatives. They are father, mother, brother, younger brother, son. He stopped here. Why did you stop? I'll say it for you. The last kiss is the wife. Jun Changshao remained silent. The system said, the host and Rose Queen got married in the Spiritus continent. Even if you don't want to admit it, according to their customs, she is your wife. This is undeniable. I've already divorced her. How can she be my wife? When? The letter before leaving the Spiritus continent. A letter is a letter of divorce is a letter of divorce. How can the two be confused? Besides, the host wrote this letter can also be treated as a letter of divorce. If she doesn't treat it as a letter of divorce, you can't do anything about it, can you? Jun Changshao was speechless. The system said seriously, the Starship King once went to the Spiritus continent. His enemies might go there. Shirshi's mission may be to let the host protect his wife. Marriage is arranged by the heavens. The system was a good system, but Gosheng was Gosheng after all. He sat on the bow of the boat and began to think hard about whether he had any other relatives, such as half-brothers or half-sisters. The host's father has been farmers for generations. Do you think he has the ability to find concubines or mistresses? The mother of this body married at the age of 17. She passed away after giving birth to you. How can there be any half-brothers? The system's combo sent Jun Changshao back to reality. He didn't have any of the 6 relatives. The only one left was Rose Queen, who was husband and wife in name but not in reality. Don't be stubborn. Don't run away. The system said, after returning to the sect, quickly go to the Spiritus continent. It's best if there's no danger, but if there is, quickly save them. After all, this is related to an epic mission. Whoosh, the ancient warship entered the spatial barrier of the Starfall continent and floated in the main hall of the sect of all times. Bring these 4 to the Earth prison and keep them under strict guard, Jun Chang said with a smile. Yes. The disciples dragged the 4 paralyzed people away. They passed by the heaven prison, which attracted Zhao Daoda's attention. He shouted, brother, come and see. More prisoners are here. Dai Lu, sigh. Zhao Daoda sat back on the wooden bed and crossed his legs. Why didn't Jun Patriarch assign the prisoners to our prison? Senior brother, I heard that the 4 people who just came in are comparable to martial emperors. Of course. In our sect of all times, other than the 2 weaklings in the heaven prison, we never take in low-level martial artists. The disciples' conversation came from outside the prison. Zhao Daodu and Dai Lu's eyes widened. The 4 people who were dragged in just now were comparable to martial emperors. Whoosh! Zhao Daodu suddenly stood up and put his hands behind his back. He looked up at the prison's iron window and said proudly, those who aren't powerful are not worthy to be my prisoners. You're tuning into the Passion Pages YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.